call the meeting of the Cleveland Heights University Heights Board of Education to order. Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Mr. Coble.
Here.
Ms. Pepler.
Here.
Mr. Register.
Here.
Mr. Silverman.
Here.
Mr. Zucker.
Here.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the special board meeting of September 30th, the regular board meeting on October 7th, 21st, and 28th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Coble.
Yes.
Ms. Pepler.
Yes.
Mr. Register.
Yes.
Mr. Silverman.
Yes.
Mr. Zucker.
Yes.
Dr. Selico, you're gonna, let me make an announcement.
Think so.
Dr. Dixon is involved in the Minority Student Achievement Network in Chicago, so she is not with us tonight. And Steve Shigalis is not with us as well. It's my understanding that he may be still in the emergency room, but I'm not sure what the details of that are. But we're expecting that he's gonna make a full recovery and will be back with us soon. So I apologize that we don't have key people here tonight, but we'll do good. Okay, so those are my announcements, and Dr. Selico, you wanna?
Yes, thank you. We have a couple recognitions this evening, so I'll come over to the podium. Good evening. Tonight we will recognize two individuals for their unique talents and superior performance. They make our district proud. We will begin by introducing Heights High ninth grader Angelique Hale. Angelique is an exemplary student, and she has not gone unnoticed in our district, nor in the medical community. Because of her impressive academic achievement, leadership potential, and determination to serve humanity in the field of medicine, Angelique has been nominated to attend the Congress of Future Medical Leaders in Washington, D.C., November 14th through the 16th. The Congress is an honors-only program for high school students who want to become physicians or go into medical research fields. The purpose of the event is to honor, inspire, motivate, and direct top students nationwide who aspire to be physicians or medical scientists to stay true to their dreams and to provide a path, plan, and resources to help them reach their career goals. Angelique was nominated by Dr. Connie Mariano, the medical director of the National Academy of Future Physicians and Medical Scientists, to represent our Cleveland Heights High School. Congratulations, Angelique, and if you would please come forward to the center of the room, and we'll take a picture with you and the board president, Mr. Register, and Mr. Ross is somewhere. There he is. Come forward, and we'll get your picture.
Congratulations.
Dr. Selico,
Yes, ma'am.
if I could just say, I'm Angelique, I'm very proud of you, and I'm not sure if medicine is the right vocation for you because you did a fabulous job advocating on behalf of your fellow students at the University Heights Planning Commission meeting last month, and I was really proud of you. Thank you.
And I wasn't present for that, but I certainly heard the feedback, and it was all very positive. Everyone was very proud of you, so great job. We look forward to great things. Next, we would like to recognize our own Scott Gaynor, the district CFO and treasurer, for his extraordinary accomplishment. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but Mr. Gaynor has been named the Crain's Cleveland Business CFO of the Year. Of the 24 exemplary CFO nominees, he was named as one of the 12 finalists and finally granted the top award in the government category. According to the nomination, he has built immeasurable trust in the community through transparency, good fiscal stewardship, and collaboration. We agree. Under his leadership, the district has seen the successful passage of the bond issue in November 2013, as well as the levy in 2011. Additionally, Mr. Gaynor's focus on operational efficiency and effectiveness has saved the district millions of dollars over the years. Mr. Gaynor, would you please come forward to have your picture taken? And I have the date. Congratulations, Scott. We're very impressed and very happy for you, so
Thank
job well done.
Thank you.
This concludes our recognitions for the evening, but I do want to take this opportunity to mention another major honor that has been bestowed upon our district. Canterbury Elementary was named a High Progress School of Honor by the Ohio Department of Education. The Schools of Honor program recognizes schools with a high percentage of students from an economically disadvantaged background that demonstrates sustained progress by all students in reading and math over a 5-year time period. Only 27 school districts in the state earned this recognition. Canterbury Principal Dr. Wigton, the staff and parents are in the process of planning for a school celebration, and I know they intend on inviting all of us, board and administrators, to participate in the celebration, and we are very much looking forward to it. So they should be receiving a banner for their school very soon, and we will be sharing more details about the plan with all of you, and would hope that you can make it as well. So that concludes our evening. We're very proud of their accomplishments as well. Thank you.
Okay. On public address, we've got quite a number of statements from the audience. I'm thinking that if you've prepared your 5-minute speech, could we ask you to take 3 minutes? Well, we'll ask then. Okay. So do what you feel like you have to do, but we will be timing you at 3 minutes, okay? Okay, and I think I got this in order, but the first person that wants to speak is Penny Neeson, and she wants to speak about Canterbury PT updates and thank yous. Can I see Penny?
Hi, good morning, or good evening. Sorry, it's been a long day. My name's Penny Neisen, and I'm with the Canterbury PTA. I'm serving as the president of the PTA again this year. And I just want to take a minute to give a couple of thank yous and also to provide some information to the community and the board about some things that are going on at Canterbury that contribute to the special culture at our school. So before I get into those details, first I'd like to take a moment to thank our Canterbury correspondent, Patty Carlisle, who has dedicated a lot of her personal time to follow the Facilities Planning Commission and keep us, the entire community, abreast of the developments regarding the Wiley Swing Space. This is an incredible contribution of time and dedicated to reporting details or blow-by-blow accounts of the developments with this particular situation. So I just want to take a minute to say thank you because I recognize that that's very difficult to follow. The next thing I'd like to do is thank Mr. Shergalis as well as Sarah Manville and Dr. Wigton for meeting last week regarding transportation at Canterbury. Sarah Manville, our Canterbury PTA data analyst, believe it or not, we have one, spent a lot of time to do a very exhaustive research of transportation patterns in a complementary school setting over in Lakewood at Lincoln Elementary. And she looked at the traffic patterns as well as the number of students in the school, as well as the number of students who walk to school or take the bus or get a ride. And she looked at some of the ways that they manage traffic around that school and provided that information to Mr. Shergalis in a very succinct but well-organized meeting last week to offer up some alternative strategies to consider for traffic management near our school. So I wanted to say thank you to her for her time and effort to research that particular situation in excruciating detail. So as you just learned last week, our school was recognized as a high progress school of honor with sustained progress in meeting the educational needs of all children at the school over the last 5 years by demonstrating consistent growth in both math and reading in all student groups. We're committed at Canterbury towards proactive, continuous improvement in the framework that we're given. Testing mandated by the Ohio law is admittedly challenging. And the set of expectations that it sets for our school as well as the rest of the students and teachers in the state present a formidable challenge. But our Canterbury community has taken a proactive approach and developed a model for success where we will commit resources to making outcomes of our students, scores, and continuous growth a very positive and powerful statement. Most notably, we want to recognize our students and our teachers for their unending will to achieve these high expectations. But I'd also like to take a moment to recognize each of our families who consistently focus on the importance of completing homework on time, having good meals and a good night's sleep, and completing regular summer reading assignments through the Books A Go-Go program. A special mention are parent volunteer focus groups, the PTA and the FAST. I know I'm almost done. They commit powerful personal investments in terms of time for every child and teacher in the community. Most notably, we have a handful of tutors that mentor students on a very regular basis. Jill Barr works to coordinate college tutors for our school. Becky Delgado, Sherry Nason, Elise Kuklinka, Sally Kramer, Sarah Manville, Molly Burke, and Reaching Heights also donate hours and hours of time every single week to tutor both at-risk students as well as students who are excelling in classes beyond their grade level.
Ms. Nason, I'm going to have to ask you to stop before I get in trouble.
Okay, 10 seconds. 10 seconds. The FAST team with Torella Treat, Miss Stewarts, and Miss Briggs are working to build family relationships, and our PTA is working to fundraise and provide material prep and organizational help to help the teachers spend more time with the students and less time with the organizational and admin details of the class. We fundraise aggressively to provide full funding for all of our field trips and also provide additional chaperones. So this model has helped our students and teachers, as well as our leaders, Principal Wigton, and our former principal, Principal S, make an exceptional impact. And we want to thank you to the board and our community for the continued support during this very exciting time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Selico meant to let Angelique know that if she would like to go do her homework, she could leave after her presentation. So that's still open to you. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. If you would like to go do your homework, we can appreciate that. And congratulations again.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tina Brock, and she wants to speak about the VMD and barbershoppers.
Good evening. My name is Tina Brock. I have 3 kids at Heights High. My son is in his 3rd year of participating with the VMD at the high school, the vocal music department. He's been active with the barbershoppers. I just wanted to remind the board of how great our barbershoppers are. This past school year, we competed in Long Beach in an international competition, and our Cleveland Heights High School barbershopper group placed first nationally and second internationally. And when they are competing in the youth group, most of them are colleges. So we're one of the few high schools that compete there. This year would be our 3rd year competing there, and it would be really important for the boys because they've worked so hard to get here. So I'm hoping that the board can, I don't know exactly how, but make sure that the funding still exists for the barbershoppers to go on their trip for this. It is it's a musical part of the curriculum that is just as important as any other competitions. I'd also like to plug the musical Guys and Dolls this Thursday through Sunday. They've worked really hard on that. And And as the parent group, we've tried to do our best to sell as many tickets and ads and whatnot, but we know that getting people there is the most important thing. So that's all I have to say. I'll keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Joyce Roper, Vocal Music Department funding. When you get to the mic, you probably should state your name because we'll pick it up on,
Did you say spell my name?
No.
state it.
State it.
Yeah.
I'm Joyce Roper. I'm a resident of Cleveland Heights. I'm also a parent of a student at Heights High. I'm also a parent of a student in the vocal music department. One of the things I want to point out that Craig McGaughy has done a really great job of when he started, back when my now junior was a fourth grader, he came down to the elementary schools and brought the fourth and fifth graders into the music production every year, every fall. And whenever we had a levy, that musical always happened right before the levy. So those parents and grandparents came into the high school, saw a phenomenal music department, and then went out and voted. And those levies passed. Music is vital. I don't have to go into the research to tell you how important it is for our students' brain development, for their interest in going to school, and for their chances to get scholarships. One of the things we're concerned about is that in the budget, there was funding for music lessons to students who were eligible for reduced lunches, and apparently that has been cut. And we know that students formerly receiving those lessons have gone on to get scholarships. Michael Judge got a full ride scholarship to Norfolk University. He received those lessons, and there have been other students as well. In addition, I know Tina mentioned that we're concerned about funding for the barber shoppers and for the tour. And one of the arguments we heard is that the tour is extracurricular. And we want to point out that it is, they take those vocal music classes as part of their curriculum. And this tour gives them opportunity to check out colleges, to receive master classes, and to see wonderful music around the country. So we hope that you'll continue to fund that in an appropriate way so that all the students can benefit from that. Now I'm switching to another topic. On behalf of the Sustainability Working Group, I just want you to know that LEED Silver is the minimum. I repeat, minimum acceptable level to qualify for state reimbursement. Currently estimated to be around 14% of the eligible project total. A LEED Gold rating would help us stand out from our competition in attracting new homeowners to our community. We should hold ourselves to that higher standard and not try to squeak by with the least we can get away with. Thank you.
Next, we have Della Schubert, Heights Coalition for Public Education.
Hi, I am Dallas Schubert, and this is Tamar Gray, and this is Dee Dee Wolin. We are here tonight as representatives of the newly formed Heights Coalition for Public Education. We are a coalition of parents, teachers, and concerned community members who are dedicated to a system that provides all children an education that gives them the opportunity to succeed in life. We believe in our schools, our teachers, our families, and our children. We believe that state-mandated tests are not legitimate measures of the quality of education our schools provide or our community values, and that rather instead they undermine that educational quality and community support. We advocate for an end to the state and federal testing policies that are harming children and public education. I had a full 5 minutes prepared where I was going to talk to you about the evils of testing, but instead I'm just going to say this one bit, and I will email you the long form so you can read all of that later. I think that you, the Board of Education and school administrators, and I and the rest of the coalition share some common goals. We want our schools to be welcoming and nurturing to all students. We want instruction to be flexible and dynamic and content to be rich and deep. We want to create an environment where teachers, as experienced professionals, are respected and valued. We want to ensure that all our students, regardless of race or income, are met with high expectations and given equal opportunity to succeed. We want our students to leave our schools as curious, critical thinkers, adept at human relationships, and armed with the knowledge and skills they need to navigate life and find success. And we want to build support in the community to make sure we have the resources to make it all happen. I am here tonight to say that if we continue to rely on standardized test scores as an indicator one way or another of our success and allow these tests to drive the educational experience in our schools, we will never achieve any of these goals. The current system of testing and judging schools is not a substitute for good policy. We are asking you, the Board of Education, as the educational leaders of our community, to step forward and create that good educational policy yourselves. So the Heights Coalition for Public Education has formed to engage the community, to educate the community around these issues of state-mandated testing and the high stakes that are attached to them. And we are here tonight to invite you to the first of 3 forums that we will be holding this year. This one is called The Myth of Failing Public Schools. It will be held November 10th, this coming Monday, from 7 to 9 p.m. in the Heights High Social Room. There will be 2 more following later this year, the myth of the failing teacher and the myth of the failing student. And we hope that you will all attend and hear what the various speakers have to say. So that's all I have to say on that. I also just want to say on another topic, I am wearing green here tonight. I am here also in support of the Sustainability Working Group and its goals and its recommendations. And I know that you are trying to be good stewards of both public dollars and public land and resources. But I would encourage you to look beyond the ends of your noses in these situations when it comes to what that responsibility and that stewardship means. And not just take the option that is cheapest now, but take the option that is forward-looking and responsible into the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just to note, I think that the board is intensely interested in this topic and would be really looking forward to future workshops. Monday happens to be a...
Tuesday.
It's Monday.
Oh, the
10th is
10th, I'm
Monday.
sorry.
But we will be at what is known as the Capital Conference, which is the statewide school board association's annual meeting. So we will not be, I don't know.
In Columbus.
We basically will be in Columbus, so we won't be at the meeting on the 10th. So, but we'll be looking forward to it. Say that again?
Okay, good.
Okay, good. We'll be looking forward to it. Thank you. Next, we have Alan Wilkinson, HVAC Central Plant Options.
Get amongst the group wearing green tonight. I'm Alan Wilkinson.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, retired NASA scientist, had 3 kids, raised 3 kids through the system here. The most affordable and sustainable energy use is the energy that you do not use. The 3 options presented publicly over the last month or so have energy use intensities, which means energy per square foot per year, of the first option, the all geothermal option of 38.3 thousand BTUs per square foot. The latest hybrid geothermal boiler cooling tower has 63.7 thousand BTUs per square foot, and the boiler chiller comes in at 81,000 BTUs per square foot per year. Note that EUIs counts for or includes lighting, appliances, all the kinds of computers, plug loads, and then hot water. It includes that, even though the HVAC system is not responsible to produce those. So you can take those numbers above and you can subtract something, but we don't know what exactly. The SWG research in 2013 showed that Elyria High School EUI is around 37,000 BTUs per square foot per year. And that's with a geothermal central plant. A Kentucky elementary school has achieved 17,000 BTUs per square foot per year. It's an all-new building, which is a unique feature, and it operates net zero today, and it has a geothermal central plant. Yes, all the geothermal installation, the all geothermal installation is about $2 million greater than the boiler chiller. But the 35-year life cycle cost is about 1.5 million less. And if you extend that out to more years, it'll be some bigger number. If you assume on-site renewable energy production growing to full capacity over the next decade, the HVAC energy cost could go to zero. But that's not factored in the current life cycle studies that I've seen. The only system feature in the Heights High design, this is the only feature in the Heights High design that has gone through a life cycle analysis. Others could be subjected to that, but have not been. But in any case, the all geothermal is the best bargain, especially on a 50-year scenario, which the design is intended to be for 50 years. I guess I should say, one of the challenges, and this isn't what I wrote down, one of the challenges that everybody raises is, what do you give up to get it? And over the last month, I've given some district leaders 2 suggestions about how to get there with no impact education. And so those are worth discussion before you sort of say you want to get rid of something because of this. And so, I throw that out. And then there's the whole ethical, I'm not going to drive, it's a moralistic statement about sustainability. If we can't lead in sustainability, if we can't do better than Elyria High School, we can't hold our heads up. Yeah, we're just nowheres. So,
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Alan. Next, we have Sharon Shoemaker, HVAC.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Shoemaker, Cleveland Heights resident and mother of 2 Heights graduates. As you have heard and as you see, there are a lot of people here tonight with green on, and that is just simply to show our support for sustainability in Cleveland Heights in general, and specifically for geothermal HVAC system at the high school. I just simply want us to start off with everybody wearing green and in support of the system, HVAC geothermal system, to stand and show your support. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sharon. Next, we have Evan Hammersmith, HVAC.
I'll speak at the end. I'm with the architect.
You'll speak at, okay. That's fine. Well, he signed in.
Told me to sign in.
Yeah, well, I guess I did help you with that a little bit, didn't I? Okay. Next, we have Gia Adine.
Good evening. My name is Gia Adine. I am a mother of a Heights senior and a Heights freshman. My daughter, Evan, is a senior and is one of the female leads in Guys and Dolls for November 6th and 8th, so we hope you come to see. Wanted to just talk a little bit about the impact of the vocal music program on our family. Our daughter, when she, and our kids have been in night school since kindergarten. When our daughter entered 9th grade, she was not having a good experience at the high school. We were this close to removing her and sending her to a private girls' school until she started participating in the vocal music program. She found a home and became very successful, has taken voice lessons for 4 years, and is now auditioning for universities to major in musical theater, and she's quite the talented vocalist and actress. We're a family that are dedicated to the Heights. My husband has lived in Cleveland Heights all his life, has attended Heights schools. My mother-in-law still lives here. Our brother-in-law and his family my other brother-in-law is a Cleveland Heights firefighter. We are Cleveland Heights people. We support the levies. We help pass them every time there is one to pass. And we pass them to maintain high-quality programs like this that keep our kids here at the schools and loving them. She's a high-performing student. She's the kind of student that's well-behaved and one that you would want in your schools. And if it wasn't for the vocal music program, I'm 100% certain Evan would not be about to graduate from the high school. she's had a good experience in her classes as well. Now that she has this passion that she can participate in, and really has found her passion through Mr. McGaughey's music program. Thank you.
Next, I think we have Ken Sakai. Okay, sustainability.
My name is Ken Sakaya. I'm a parent of a student at Roxborough. I'm also Joan Spurl's husband. So I was given this long boilerplate to read, but I'll keep it a lot shorter than that. So one of the drawbacks of full geothermal is that it sucks up some electricity. It has pumps and stuff like that. So in isolation, it looks like, well, maybe it's not such a good idea. But there's an out. The system's been engineered to have photovoltaic, which is also getting cheaper. There's a lot of work on making that cheaper. So that means that this could be a closed system, net zero, which is very cool. Nod if you think it's cool. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. So now we have Kenji Sakaya. And he wants to speak about sustainability as well.
My name is Kenji Sakaya. I am in 4th grade at Roxborough. What kind of message do you send to kids when you look back toward the technologies of the STEAM era and not forward to the proven long-term benefits of a full geothermal HVAC system? We kids are already in despair over your political inability to actively confront climate change head-on. We need to show that we can look beyond the present moment for the sake of the children. Remember, you are borrowing the planet from your grandchildren.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Joan Spurl, sustainability as well. I guess it's a family affair.
Hi, I'm Joan Spurl. That's my son. So I'm a parent of a child at Roxborough Elementary. I have just a few points to make. One of the issue 81 promises that led me to vote for it was the promise of substantially increased energy efficiency. I expect you to make that promise a reality. Second, you are prepared to pay your current owner's rep about twice as much as the difference in upfront costs for a full geothermal system versus a conventional gas system. Let's get our priorities straight. Next, even the hybrid geothermal system under consideration would reduce our district's carbon footprint by an amount equivalent to planting 1,700 acres of trees. For comparison's sake, that's an area about half again as big as University Heights, or roughly a third of the size of Cleveland Heights. I hope that number's right. Allie Abramson will be able to tell you. Lastly, I know this upfront cost is what is challenging folks, it seems, but I just want to remind you that you were able to justify the much greater expense for a sustainable turf field by saying that you were going to get a lot of use for the players from it, and you were also going to be able to rent the stadium out. It was going to be appealing to other people, and so instead of even looking at much cheaper, field sown from grass, you knew that you wanted to have all of that play by the students. So you justified that cost back then up front without any question, with very little debate about it. So you can look at the geothermal HVAC in the same way and see the cost savings that are coming down the line and justify it, And then I also just wanted to, we've brought up this point before, but again, it's a marketing tool. If we are able to get closer to achieving net zero, it's a very attractive and if we can make our building a teaching tool and really embrace this in our curriculum, we can use it as a marketing tool. And I happened to be on a tour with some early childhood professionals on Saturday, visiting different early childhood centers in the area, one of which was Ruffing Montessori, and their director was touting the Green School and their approach, and they have these fantastic materials I would like to pass out, and I hope Dr. Dixon will get a copy as well. But they market their school in this way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Patty Carlisle, UH Planning Commission / Wiley.
Good evening, thank you. So yes, I have been, as Penny mentioned earlier, been following the Wiley swing space issue really closely, and so for anyone who hasn't been following it, I suggest that you do, because all of this talk about sustainability and the vocal music program is lovely, and I support it. However, if we don't have a building for the children to go into next year, it's sort of moot. So the next, actually I should say, hi, I'm Patty Carlisle. I am a Canterbury parent and a University Heights resident. So I come at this from a, this is my city kind of thing. And I want to say to the parents of Cleveland Heights, soon to be high school students or already high school students, you're welcome in my city. I'm embarrassed that the perception has been that you're not, and your children are not welcome in my city. 30% of both Canterbury and Garrity are University Heights residents, but our kids are in every school in this district. And I just believe very deeply that as University Heights, it's our job now to welcome everyone in. So I want to say that, whatever you've heard out there, it's not necessarily how everybody feels about our students and about our schools. And the more attention this issue has gotten, the more and more voices of support have been out there. So I wanted to also invite the board to engage University Heights residents directly, because we are out there and we want to help, we want to engage. And we want our voice to be heard too. We're a small city, but we're there. The other thing, if you are interested in following this, the next Planning Commission meeting, which hopefully we will get this thing through, is Tuesday, November 18th, 7 p.m. at the Dolan Center at John Carroll. Thanks.
Next, we have Laura Murata, Vocal Music Department.
Hi, my name is Laura Murata, and this is not a shameless plug, but I am a realtor. And I live in the city of Cleveland Heights. And I will tell you that my husband's been a resident on Derbyshire, for most of his life. And so we moved to the city in 1999 and had one small child who is now a senior at Heights High. And our kids had all attended St. Anne's Communion of Saints schools. And over the process of the last few years, they've all ended up in the public school system. One of the things that I encounter as a professional all the time is people, as they're moving in from out of town, asking me, can my kids go to the Heights schools? Because I hear they can't. This is a common, unfortunate, prevailing sort of opinion out there. And in the past, I could never tell them anything personally. I always just say, you have to look at the test scores, look at the information that's out there. I had no pertinent information myself. Now I do, and I'm armed with that tonight when I tell just a brief story of my oldest daughter, Jana, who was a failing student because she has difficulty in learning, and she had been diagnosed with ADD, which, a lot of people think doesn't exist. It does. She came into the Heights schools in 9th grade, really struggling. And through the stewardship, really, which was almost accidental, of her ending up in the vocal music department, she became a student of Mr. McGaughey's, and I don't think that he did anything particularly special with her that he doesn't do with all of his students. My daughter went from a failing child to a child that is so psyched about life, has so found her passion. She is the lead opposite Evan, on Friday and Sunday. We're personally bringing over 70 people to both shows. And what happens through this process is that I now have a child that has a direction in life. She may not be able to earn anything with it, I'm not sure, but the passion is there and she has a direction. She did not have this prior to this experience. She has confidence. She did not have this prior to the experience. She gets on a stage in front of, she sang the national anthem for all of you this year. She is doing things with confidence, and this is a child that struggled daily, with esteem and confidence issues. It has been a transformation. And everybody that knows her outside of, the Cleveland Heights area, family and friends, who scoffed at her coming to Heights, who were afraid for her, security, literally, these were the comments that that were given to us, is blown away. And we bring them into the school to these functions, and they walk away with an entirely different viewpoint, which I think is fabulous about Cleveland Heights. So my husband and I are just so concerned. We have 2 more children in the school, a freshman at Heights who loves it, and we have a 5th grader now at Roxborough who loves it. And for me, to see budget cuts that would harm the future of these programs, because my kids aren't athletes, is scary and sad. So we're just here in positive support and to share the message of what a great program like this can do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe this is Ronald Tennyson. How you doing?
Hi, my name is Ronald Tennyson, and I too am a parent of a VMD child. My senior is the male lead, opposite Evan, so I'm sure you notice a pattern here. I too am somewhat concerned about the direction that the funding is going, both for the tour, the musical, and extracurricular programs like the barbershop. As many of my previous fellow parents have indicated, that it has made a huge impact on our family, so I won't bore you with my story on that. But I would like to take a different angle on that, and that is that 2 things I want to point out is that when you drive into Lee Road, the first sign of Kane Park, it says, this is the home of the arts. And I really believe that very strongly. I've always felt that way. And I think if we want to stay the home of the arts, it is very important that we keep supporting programs like the VMD and the IMD appropriately, because that's where it all starts. So I'm feels very strongly about that. And the other thing I was going to point out is that from a PR standpoint, this program has done amazing things to people inside the city as well as outside the city. And I will finish up with a small little anecdote. I'm an athletic director and a phys ed teacher at Old Trail School in Bath. And for the last 4 years, I've brought 25 colleagues from Akron to see the musical. Among them, the director of choral music, the director of performing arts, and the director of music. And these people are blown away by what we do at Heights High. They would not come back if we were just middle of the road. They come back because we are clearly a cut above the rest. And I really would like to keep it that way. And I would hope that the board can continue to support the programs in an appropriate way. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Lisa Rainsong. And she wants to speak about the HVAC.
Lisa Rainsong, and I am a 20-year homeowner in Cleveland Heights. And actually, I am very much in support of geothermal, but what I wanted to add as part of the overall picture that we're talking about as far as sustainability is also emphasizing the importance of native plantings, and sustainability is outside as well as inside. So I want to make sure everybody's thinking about the possibility that even small areas of shrubbery and bushes can support a diverse microecology. Beneficial insects, and it all starts with the insects. It starts with the insects and the plants. That includes the bees and the butterflies. Insects Beautiful flowers and a diverse population of birds can be nurtured by simple soil improvements. We can do this. Simple soil improvements, careful selection of appropriate plants, especially native plants, and an easily maintained bird bath. That's all it takes. It's wonderful, and it teaches the kids a whole lot about sustainability right there.
Next, we have Susan Miller, Sustainability and Money.
Sam Bell contacted me today, and he said, come to the board and support this effort. And I thought, oh, Sam, we had this discussion. So let me backtrack and say I'm Susan Miller. My son went to Roxborough and Heights. He got the music bug. We cannot get it out of him. He's starving in Seattle. Thank you, Heights schools. So yes, the music program makes the Heights schools different from any other schools anywhere. I hear this wherever I go. You have that? Oh my God, that's incredible. Let's keep up with the music. But as an artist myself, and my background was in the arts, and I was faculty at Cleveland State University, where I was thrown out of my dance program, where I graduated the University of South Florida knowing nothing about producing dance. And I was put into a concrete room down at Cleveland State University in the basement. We did great performance, just like those people on the Lower East Side in New York City, by saying, here, hold this clip-on lamp. Okay, now put that clip-on lamp on that student over there. This is how arts learn. But to serve the breadth of the kind of student that will be in the Heights, the one that is going to excel, is going to become, a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief, a mother, hardest job of all. We're going to have facilities, and it concerns me that given the economic issues that we were facing when we put this levy out there, and I have to tell you, I didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for it because I do research on who's paying taxes and how much money there is out there. And there's not enough money. People are struggling. So when you have $10, you have $10. You don't get to go above and beyond. Something may have to give. The sustainability aspect of it is the point at which we can pull back the budget. I want you to be planning for how do we pay that bond off early? Because folks, it's the interest. So, okay, $138 million, but it's the interest. We're not talking about, who knows? What's the total amount given the interest? What's that figure? 38 years. What's the interest? If you buy a $70,000 home, you don't pay $70,000 for it unless you put cash on the line on day one. So we're paying a whole lot more than what we passed that bond levy for. So I feel like I've been a little bit sold down the river here. And now to hear from Sam Bell that we're having trouble putting this geothermal issue through. I live right down the street from Joan Sperl, and they're going to put in a turf field. That's the first thing they're going to do with our levy money. Please. The perception, I need to tell you, the perception, I'm not involved in it every day because my kids long since graduated, but the perception for many of us is, where do you think this money is going to come from? So I encourage the board to think about the sustainability issues, not in a dream world, but rely on your NASA scientist. He's right here. Rely on your sustainability working group. I get it, Ron. And let's pay the bond off earlier. And if that means putting in a geothermal HVAC system now and stepping up to solar panels in the next round, let's do it.
Thank you, Susan. Next, we have Jim Miller, Geothermal HVAC and our future generation of students.
Yeah, my name is Jim Miller. I'm a 35-year homeowner in Cleveland Heights, and my son went through the schools K through 12. He's actually now in Cairo, Egypt, just about finished with his master's degree. Been through a very difficult, lost a friend. It's been an interesting 3 years. But I look up there at that slogan, preparing all students for success in a global economy, and I think about preparing students for survival on this globe. And my son I told him a couple of hours ago I was going to be talking. He said, "Go to it, Dad, get him." Because it makes me think even more how we're living on this globe, and we've got to think about what we're doing and how it's affecting the future generations, my son's generations, and the generation after that, and the generation after that. And I actually don't even like to think about it because it's very scary. But what you're doing, the votes you're going to take whenever this vote is on the geothermal is you are educating the students of this district by how you handle it, and you are, in some small measures, setting what their future is going to be. And I had one little thing I'm supposed to read here, so I guess I'll... what it basically says that Heights High's current level of energy consumption puts us in the worst 10% of all schools in similar climate zones nationally, and a full geothermal system could put us in the top 10%. That's a pretty dramatic change. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have Kate McLeod. She had to leave. Okay, then we don't have her. Okay, then we have Gay Overall.
It's Kuro.
Oh, yeah, I see. It's a Q. Okay.
Gay Kuro, a 40-year resident of Cleveland Heights. All three of our children were in K through 12 here in the district, and we're proud of it. Proud of the vocal music program as well, users of that. I'm actually talking about the issue of a sustainability director. The City of Cleveland has a sustainability director. The Cleveland Clinic has a sustainability director. So does University Hospitals. And so does Case Western Reserve University. The Cuyahoga County Council just voted to hire a sustainability director. It's time to wake up and smell the coffee. Our district needs one too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Glenn E. Billington, HVAC.
Thank you. I'm going to top them all. I lived here 47 years. I have 3 children who graduated from Heights High School, went all the way through, who return and live in Cleveland Heights. And I have 6 grandchildren, 3 of whom are in Cleveland Heights schools now, and the other 3 are just little guys. I sent you a letter that raised the essential points that I'd like to make. The most important, I think, that hasn't been mentioned, I agree with everything people have already said, there's a hidden cost in burning natural gas. It's the effect it has on our environment. The less burning of natural gas, the less CO2, the less climate change. If you don't believe in climate change, then you're on the wrong boat. But those grandchildren I'm talking about, suddenly I have a bunch of little kids around the house, and I'm thinking about where will they be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now. I don't want this to be beachfront property. I don't mean that lightly. The climate is changing, and it's changing because we're burning too much carbon. In your calculations, if you put in a carbon tax, which is very likely, the numbers are going to change much more radically in favor of the geothermal. On top of that, there's a public relations issue that was just brought up. If we could show our kids and show our community that we're ahead of the curve and not behind it, that would be a good step. The teaching opportunities that can come out of this for the project-based education that we're so proud of and want to continue, this is an everyday repeating, every year repeating challenge to look at those numbers and write your reports and make it much more public. So there's just multiple non-financial issues that you should address. So I'd go for the whole geothermal. And I think you could probably raise some money, some grant money, if you went out and looked for it to make up some of that capital difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Laura Marks.
I'm Laura Marks. 2 weeks ago, I was saying that my family lived here 168 years, but last week, during Halloween week, I spent time in the cemetery working on another project that I'm doing and found out that yet another generation of my family lived here. I'll have to figure out how long my family's been here from before the next board meeting. So far, this has me really concerned that no one has done any, we haven't seen any design work on the outdoor spaces except for the new football field. Our outdoor spaces should provide environmental ecosystem services to minimize stormwater runoff and maximize carbon sequestration. In addition, our outdoor landscape should be designed to provide for rich and varied learning experiences throughout the year. We have the opportunity to be truly innovative by capturing and reusing all the rainwater that falls on the new roof. If we do so, we'd become nationally known for it, not, by the way, because it's difficult, because it shows how serious we are, how seriously we value the environment that we share with the rest of the earth. I also want to say that I'm really dismayed that the subject of geothermal is even under debate. I thought that that was a subject we'd already decided before the 81 went on the ballot. And so I'm feeling like that's what I voted for, and I'm really confused and hurt.
Okay, next we have Penny Allen.
Hi, I'm Penny Allen. I've been a homeowner in Cleveland Heights for 30 years, and I'm addressing the HVAC issue. Today, we're considering that choice between a green technology that will save costs over the long term, or a conventional system. Now, the cost saving over the long term is very important consideration for you, but even more important is the message that your choice sends. The choice that we make now for a building program models our goals and values for the young people going to school at Heights. What will we say to them just one day after the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a report showing that we need to get carbon emissions to zero by the turn of the century to avoid irreversible impacts of climate change? What will we say to them about how much we care about their future? Do we demonstrate short-sightedness, doing what's cheaper now and does nothing to help create a livable world that they need, or do we saddle them with additional taxes that they'll have to vote for when they get to be voting age to maintain and rebuild these systems? So let's do a better job of showing them what our values and priorities are. Unfortunately, we demonstrated that sports, not academics, which includes the arts, are our top priority for the money that the voters will be sacrificing for quite some time. Let's send a new message. That we care about their future. Let's model the fiscal sense that we hope that they'll have when they grow up, to think about the long-term future and their kids' future instead of what's in their wallet right now. And let's model the important value that we hope that they will hold, that we have to build an energy sustainable future, or we and the generations that come after us will live in a troubled, environmentally degraded world with little hope for improvement. That's your choice.
Next, we have Allie Abramson.
Hi, I'm Allie Abramson. I am here to talk to you about HVAC, which you've heard a lot about tonight. I'm a professor in mechanical and aerospace engineering at Case. I also was chief scientist at the Department of Energy for the Building Technologies Office, responsible for setting the agenda for R&D for building efficiency for the country. I'm an FAC member here, and I'm a homeowner in Cleveland Heights, and I'm the parent of a child in 4th grade who attends Roxborough. I just wanted to make some statements about geothermal. Geothermal is largely a recommendation that the Department of Energy uses for school systems, school buildings in particular, having to do with payoff over the lifetime. These systems do have long lifetimes, upwards of 50 years. They're very reliable. Maintenance costs tend to be less than other systems, and we've seen that in the reports that have come out from the engineers. While geothermal systems do tend to have a higher electricity cost in comparison to gas systems, those costs, and I should say higher upfront capital costs, those costs are very site dependent. And while I completely trust that the engineers working on this project have done their due diligence to do the best job they can to come up with the estimate for this system, getting second opinions and third opinions on what those costs might be would be a prudent path, again, given the high variability in those cost estimates specifically for geothermal. I wanted to also mention, based on the reports that we've seen so far, I have requested, and I know that some work's being done to collect additional information, some questions that are outstanding. I'm not going to talk about those today, but I do feel like other questions need to be answered in order to do a full and fair assessment of the systems that are presented. I do want to say that the projection of the operating costs are very dependent on what the forecast of energy prices will be. And as all of us in this room know, nobody can do a good job forecasting what those electricity and gas prices will be. But I do trust my former colleagues at the Energy Information Agency at the Department of Energy. They do spend a lot of time looking at the information that's out there to come up with those best projections, and those are what were used in the calculation of the lifetime of the systems. I also just want to mention, and this was touched on, that although the electricity costs are relatively high for the geothermal system, electricity costs will continue to rise in this country. That's partially due to widespread use of renewables and the impact that's going to have on our utility companies. But I will say that in many parts of the country, putting PV panels on our roofs is free. And that's because of the leasing options that a lot of school systems and homeowners have, essentially zero upfront or low upfront capital costs of PV systems due to the quote-unquote free energy you get. And so there are lots of programs around the country that essentially, again, it costs no money to put PV on a roof. Now, that's not the case for Ohio because our energy is relatively cheap. But based on work by a lot of scientists that work in this field, Ohio, we will soon see that, and the projection is within the next 5 to 10 years, that we should be able to put PV on the roof of our building, essentially with no upfront capital costs, to then cover all of those additional operating costs that we will see from the electricity to run the geothermal system.
Allie?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay.
I just verified that it is the equivalent of 1,700 acres of trees in a comparison of the full geothermal system to the gas boiler. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Molly Lewis. There she is.
Good evening. My name's Malia Lewis.
I didn't realize there were going to be 25 people ahead of me, so ditto. And don't be penny wise and pound foolish. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, that is everyone who signed the paper. Now, to be perfectly honest, if somebody else wants to say something, I'm obliged to let you say it. Anybody out there want to say one last? Come forward, state your name.
Hi, I'm Ben Nichols. I'm the father of a Roxborough fourth grade student, so I'm part of the mafia with everybody else. I'm an accountant by trade, so really all the touchy-feely talk about green and efficiency is great, but I really look at the bottom line, right? So for me, you know, they say that it's going to cost $2 million to put in the geothermal system, and it's going to save $1.5 million over the gas system, right? So that's the first 35 years. We're not looking out the full 50 years. So over 50 years, that's going to be projected as definitely a positive for us, which is great. And then you add into the fact that the state's going to pay 14% of that cost, and that's just an extra $300,000 that I look at and say, wow, why don't we do that? And of course, yeah, then you add in all the positives of the fact that, yeah, it's green, it's good for the environment, it's great for our city, it puts us back where Cleveland Heights belongs, you know, being the place that people want to live and people want to send their kids to school there. So I think when you look at the bottom line, the numbers, and, you know, Allie laid it out really on the the costs of energy and not knowing where they are. I remember 10 years ago paying 3 times in the cost of gas what I do now. So, you know, you can't really predict what it's going to be. And so I think it's really important to take the safer route. And even though we're going to pay more upfront costs, in the long run, it's definitely better for us. So thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any board members? There's a lot on our plate tonight. Anybody have any comments, any reactions?
Well, I know we'll be, in the agenda, we'll be talking a lot about the HVAC system options. I also know that Scott was prepared to give some context to the concerns from the vocal music department parents and other community members. I have one kid involved in vocal music, one in the IMD, instrumental music. So we really think it's important to get good information out and to respond, because we knew there were going to be a lot of you here.
Agreed. Thanks, Nancy. I guess the point that I really wanted to make tonight is that there does appear to be some commingling of issues and perhaps some misinformation that has gone out to parents. Back in May, there was an overall budget reduction across the board. It was proportionate. All programs were affected to some degree, but it was not anything that I would suggest is devastating or doing away with any program in particular. I think what's happened, though, is that the vocal music group, the show that's happening, and then the vocal music tour are at issue now, or how they're funded. I think that seems to be the rub. And so that's kind of a separate issue unto the budget reductions that happened in May. So we did have a budget for the production that's happening, and obviously the board and the administration are very supportive of the arts. And I think that the dollars, if I pulled for you the budget that we spend on vocal and instrumental and visual arts in total, you would find that hard to dispute. And to give you just an example, we did a survey of some other districts, just for comparison purposes, and for the production that we have coming up, what the board supports for that production is more than Orange, Beechwood, Euclid, and Shaker combined. So there is definite support. I think the problem is, and the question is becoming, what level of support comes for the vocal music tour that happens in the spring. And the superintendent met with Mr. McGahee and said to him that if there were additional savings or if the entire budget was not spent for the production, that money could be spent or to help support the vocal music tour. And Mr. McGahee at that time, had $20,000 that he said, he'd asked for more budget than he needed because he was told in the past that it was easier to, ask for more up front than to try to get more later. And so she said, well, that $20,000 and any other savings can help defray the cost of the vocal music tour. The problem is that then the district is being asked to spend more money, again, to support the vocal music tour. And to put that in context, you have 3 field trips that you're approving tonight. One is the instrumental music department, one is the trip to Quebec for the French group, and the other is a tour to DC. None of those tours are asking for any money from the district whatsoever. It is entirely funded through fundraising efforts and through parents. So again, I think it maybe becomes an equity issue as some of the discussion as to whether or not or why some groups might get district support where other groups would not. So I just don't want to make the conversation be something that it really isn't, which is that the vocal music group is not supported because they are. I think we all appreciate the work they do and the great things that Craig does with kids. And I think we want to see that continue. The conversations are just around how we can jointly, with the district's level of support and fundraising by the parents, make sure that there's an affordable trip for the kids in the spring. So that's kind of where that all stands now. And I know that, when things get out, and pass through many sets of hands, sometimes the information gets a little skewed. So that's where we are with that. Am I accurate in that, Andrea? So, and we've had good conversations with leadership at VAPO. We've talked about fundraising opportunities. I think we're working collaboratively with them, and I fully expect that the trip will go on, as Talisa had mentioned, the superintendent, and that it will be affordable for the parents. And that's kind of where we are. Are there any questions that I can answer for the board to that point?
I don't know if it's a question, Scott, but I think the thing that's important for me as both a vocal music parent and a board member is to know that there have not, or to make sure the community knows, is that there have not been any additional cuts. The cuts that were made to the department were made across the board to all departments. There was no money moved. One of the things we heard was there was money moved from vocal music to sports. It never happened. That would never happen. And those were made last May, and Mr. McGahee and every other department head knew that those were made across the board last May. And there are no other reductions that we're talking about at this point. Correct. And so this new, I think this new advocacy, which I very much appreciate and understand, is about in part the reaction to the shocking number of what it'll cost the families, and a lot of families who simply can't afford it. I get that, to send the kids on tour, and I've been asking a lot of questions of the administration, and I really trust that they're working with Craig to try to reduce that as much as possible. I've heard some new numbers over the last week that because of some shifts and some dollars that he is talking to the administration about, we think it'll come in line with previous budgets for that. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that. And just to say, we all feel very much we are very supportive of the vocal music and the instrumental music department. And so this is not new. And I think that's one of the pieces of information that sort of came out, was that people believed that we had made some recent cuts, or there were cuts coming up. That just is not the case. That's all I wanted to add.
Well, and I think that that Mr. McGahee and others, all of us, have had some consternation just because of the state auditors, and we all know this is to be the case, that they've been involved and they're really holding us to a different standard in terms of making sure that we follow procedures and we do what we're required to do. Otherwise, they will issue findings for recovery, and we've had that happen. So. That's a different way to operate, and it's a little more difficult, and it requires us to do some things that we haven't had to do in the past, and that's hard to do, and it's a change, and I think somehow that's been perceived as something specific to vocal music when that's truly not the case. We've had to do that district-wide. That's the auditors given us a lot of grief, and we've talked about that many times here.
About how
terms of-
fundraising is done and how those dollars are, yeah.
Well, even the federal government in terms of what can be fundraised and when and how, and the whole Healthy Foods Initiative, that's not the district imposing rules. That's, the federal government is saying you may not sell unhealthy snacks during the school day, kind of a thing. So it's just a lot coming on all at once, and I think it's maybe being perceived in a way that it's not really intended to be.
I think the other byproduct, and you've sort of mentioned this, is that we have people coming advocating for a program against another program, and this shouldn't be programs fighting programs and divisions fighting divisions. This is all of us fighting the budget, and that's really what this is all about.
I'd just like to say, I think one of the good pieces of news, particularly around the music, is that I think we have a much more active parent group that's willing to work collaborative with the district in terms of looking at and understanding where those gaps in financing might be, and how we, as we move forward, how we can work more closely together. I think that many of you know that certainly me, and I think the rest of the board, is absolutely committed to the music program and the fine arts programs in general, and we think that we would not be the district that we are if we didn't have them. So if anything, we would like to be able to put ourselves in a position that we can collaboratively make them even better than they are now, and maybe have more of our students involved in them. When we start thinking about some of the things that are going on at the middle schools, we would probably like to have a little bit more activity there. So I think that we're absolutely committed to it, and I think the spirit that we would like to have is that we can work collaborative to solve these kind of problems. That's what we're known for, and let's just roll up our sleeves and get these things done. Anything else? Well, I have to say that I'm really intrigued by the sustainability conversation that we've had. I think that I'm going to tell a little story, which I don't do often, but bear with me. RTA is a sizable organization, right? Now, you would think that they might have some kind of expertise on their staff when it comes to facilities that we may not have. But I don't think so. I think these public institutions may not, they have to hire consultants, and they have to do due diligence around hiring their consultants. And what I think about is that RTA took that University Circle Rapid Station and moved it across the street. And they spent, I'm guessing, about $500,000 to have a covered walkway to a parking lot that nobody uses. In the meantime, the people that are coming out from down the rapid for the next 150 or so feet, no covering. I'm saying maybe if somebody was thinking, we could have that probably covered, enclosed, and all kinds of different things. But I'm thinking, what it says is that we don't sit around in these institutions and have that expertise. And we have to just do our best to try to make sure that as we engage our consultants and architects and contractors, that we are doing our due diligence. And I think the beauty here is that we have engaged as a community. So we have expertise in the community that has come forward. And I think we continue to have that expertise come forward. It's not by happenstance that the sustainability working group exists. That's because we as a board and we as a district believe in that. We think it's important for us to talk to each other. So I just want to remind us that we absolutely are committed, and there are some things that we've done. Had we just been left up to our own devices, we probably would not have done. We wouldn't have had a conversation about LEED certification or any of that kind of stuff, except that you guys come forward and say, hey, this is an important thing. So I think what you need to do is rest assured that our ears are open, we're listening, and let's continue to try to move this forward in such a way that we get the best product that we can. Anything else? Okay. Well, let's move on. And we have the superintendent's report given by Dr. Selico.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Register. Our first item is asking you, making a recommendation for you to approve the interagency agreement between Cuyahoga County and the Cleveland Heights University Heights School District as it pertains to the Students of Promise Closing the Achievement Gap Initiative, and I'd like to just make a few remarks about that. So we are looking to join with the county through its Office of Health and Human Services in participating in a pilot at the request of the county council to implement the school and community-based Closing the Achievement Gap program, in which they will partner with our district to provide our students with mentors and coaches and assisting in our students' participation in academic programs, social skills training, mentoring programs, and actually many more different opportunities. The county will also provide us with tutoring for our students, a summer program, and also technical assistance. And I know that Bob Ivory is here tonight. He's still there, and he's our district liaison right through the county, and so we're appreciative that he's here. And so we're asking for your approval for that agreement this evening.
So moved. Second. Any further discussion? And we do want to thank Bob for coming in and sitting with us. We appreciate it. Would you like to make a comment about this?
Good evening, and I apologize for not having on green. But I do think an important segue, especially when I heard about music. It was almost 4 years ago where I was a part of the transition team for the new county government, and later on had the privilege of working in administration. But for the inauguration, I was the one that reached out to Cleveland Heights and Mr. McGahey, where the Cleveland Heights Core Department actually performed at the county inauguration of the first county executive. And I think that's appropriate because here we are 4 years later, unbeknownst to most of us, including myself, that now your Cuyahoga County Health and Human Service dollars will be bringing this initiative to help bolster achievement of your students under that same guise. So I think that there's something going on with that. But I just appreciate your vision and receptiveness to this model. We've gotten off to a great start in the other 3 participating districts, Garfield, Maple, and Warrensville Heights, and it's just a privilege and an honor to be able to share this opportunity and work with your learning community. I'm also the father of 3 Cleveland Heights grads, and I'm just looking forward to partnering with your district on this pilot. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, observations? Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Coble?
Yes.
Thank you. Our second item is for the approval of 3 field trips, as Mr. Gaynor had previously mentioned. The first is for the Cleveland Heights High School Symphony, Symphonic Winds, and Jazz Ensemble. Field trip to Toronto, Canada, scheduled for February 28th through March 2nd, 2015. And these are the 9th through 12th graders will be performing at various venues, and they will get to attend a performance as well as a number of clinics. And the second trip is for our Cleveland Heights grade students in University Heights. I don't want want to slide that. Grades 6 through 12, French students field trip to Montreal and Quebec, Canada, scheduled for May 9th through the 12th in 2015. And those are opportunities which I thought was unique for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, along with some high school students from their French class, to go and learn about the French culture. And so they have a number of opportunities with some host families, etc. And then the third trip is for the Monticello Middle School 8th grade students field trip to Washington, D.C., scheduled for May 20th through the 22nd. And I know you've seen this trip probably many times, year after year. And so the details for those trips, I don't think have changed since I've been in 8th grade as I was reading those. But nonetheless, very good experience for our students. So the itineraries for all the trips are noted in your book. So we ask that you would please approve those trips.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Koval?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
I'll accept a motion to approve E 1 through 3, plus there's an addendum. 1 through 5, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1 through 5, plus an addendum. I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a question.
Okay.
We had there was a bus driver who fell ill on a run. Is she okay?
That's not related to this.
No? I'm just asking because it's personnel. You okay? Oh. Those personnel, okay, I'll ask you later then. Never mind, I'm sorry. I wouldn't want to mess with your flow.
No, it's just not
I was
related to
showing
the
empathy.
vote.
I was showing empathy. I
And
thought
we
this was
love
a-
that about you, Eric.
Jeez, okay, never mind. Okay. I will show empathy. That was the one out, that's it. No more empathy.
That's great. Could we have that conversation?
About my having empathy, or-
Eric's
My mom will be
response for
very
Eric
disappointed.
by the end of the meeting. Okay. Anything else? Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Koval?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes. Now, I believe that most of the business services items have to be taken separate. And I think F1 is the recommendation to renew a lease agreement with, between us and Urban Oak Schools. So I'll accept a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion,
I have a question.
questions?
They're already in there for their current year, so
Yes,
why
sir.
is this, shouldn't we have voted on this before they?
We're trying to, actually, every lease every tenant that's in there, with the exception of Family Connections, is in a current lease that has been continuously rolling over. And Mr. Bugatti and I are in the process of getting them all on the same renewal. So you're going to be seeing a few of them coming up in the next month or so that we're going to get on. They're actually expire in June. So our fiscal year will drive the leases.
So we're trying to get all of them on a July to June
Yes, sir.
year?
So Urban Oak's now in their second year in Coventry. Is this their second school year or their third school year?
This is their second school year.
Okay. I was curious because I was like, wait, they're.
And the driver, last word I had was she's doing better.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
but don't tell me that until later because
We
I'm
aim to
not allowed to
please.
ask that. Okay. Good.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Koval?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Okay, and we have a resolution authorizing the execution of a non-binding proposal for the lease of certain portions of the Coventry School to the Wingspan Care Group and Sherry Skadale for use as student and family counseling space.
So moved.
Second.
Actually, Mr. Register, we're going to ask Dr. Johnston to come up, because this is a new lease and a new opportunity for our students and families that we're excited about. So I asked Dr. Johnston to say a few remarks about this.
Good evening. This is an opportunity to work with some community mental health partners to use the space at Coventry to provide opportunities for them to work with families, work with students. It also provides an opportunity for us to use it as a family engagement, provide parent training and services to families that are in our school district. One of the things that we know is a barrier for some of our students and the families is getting to places for care. So we see it as a real opportunity to use a space that we have to provide a place for our families to work with their providers. And really the idea came from our district social workers, working with them, working with counselors. So we're excited about it. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Where in the building?
It is on the first, when you walk in,
Okay.
kind of right next to, the old media center is the way to
Oh, okay,
describe
the
it.
library space.
Right.
Okay.
So it has a nice open space where we would have opportunities for parent training. And then it also has closed office space to provide for individual and counseling, group counseling.
And I mean, just from a building standpoint, this is, I guess, more for George. At this juncture now, it would seem that pretty much any space in Coventry that has a door and walls is occupied, and the only space that is not used is the open second floor.
You're right.
Okay.
And George, for the other question I have related to that is the lease rates for the two that we're approving tonight appear to be significantly different. Can you speak to that?
The thought was to put them in line with a lease rate similar to Reaching Heights and Family Connections. That has not been set in stone, but that's where we're aiming for.
Okay. So the Connections Wingspan and this private practitioner rate in line with that?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're going to be sharing space?
Right, we would have, our role with it is helping to schedule the space because any kind of referral would be coming through our district social workers. And so we would be working with them and they would be sharing space.
So they would
Correct.
be scheduling through your office?
Right, we're going to start that way because referrals would be coming and working with our student services. And then we have to see how it's going to go. We wanted to ensure that there was a connection between our social work supports and the supports that our families are seeking.
They're Cleveland Heights, I mean, I know one of them is, but they're basically based in Cleveland.
Right, they work throughout, yes, Cleveland Heights University, yes.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Coble?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Okay. F3, a recommendation to approve the October 23rd bid and award a contract for the Noble Elementary School Playground Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Questions?
I think that this was all fundraised, correct? 'Cause I remember
No,
getting- It wasn't? Oh, I'm sorry.
you're accepting a donation later, and that is for the equipment.
Okay.
This is for the actual installation.
Gotcha.
The contractor's going to be doing that.
But okay, because I remember that they did do a good portion of fundraising for the project.
A large amount, yes.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Gaynor?
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Coble?
Yes.
Okay. We're at F4, recommendation to approve payment in lieu for 2014-2015 school year.
So moved.
Second?
Just a quick question. We're somewhat behind approving this, right? Or we don't know exactly when people might make that request.
No, it's normally, this is about, in October is when we attempt to get it to you, but so we're into November's board meeting, but October is normal.
But is it a timing issue in terms
Yes, it
of when
is.
people make their request, or?
Yes, it is. I mean, it'll be throughout the summer and then into this year. And Scott Smith manages that.
If I ask you where a couple of these schools are, could you tell me where they are? Intergenerational school?
I'd have to find out. for
Okay.
you.
That's it.
Intergenerational is,
Fairhill, okay.
Yes, Cleveland.
Sacred Heart of Jesus?
I'm not familiar with that one either.
I was just, because other ones I could sort of deduce and figure out where they were. I was trying
Right.
to figure out in the context.
I'd
Okay.
use Google Maps myself.
Okay, I was,
Jesus, isn't that on Green Road?
I don't know, that's, okay,
Yeah, some people.
okay. Gotcha, thank you.
Used to be St. Clair.
Oh, okay, now I know what you're talking, okay, I know that, I understand it now. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Coble?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Okay, I think we can take F5 altogether on the acceptance of donations to Canterbury, Noble, Oxford, and Roxborough.
So moved.
Second.
Any conversation, discussion, questions?
This is the $17,000 that was funded.
Yes, it is.
Gotcha.
Right. Okay, Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Coble?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes. Yes, it's $131 for Canterbury, $17,818.45 for Noble, $125 to Oxford, and $21.55 to Roxborough Middle School. We approved that, right? Yeah. Now, just a quick note. Do we need a couple of minutes to stretch, or are we okay? I think we're probably talking about, what, 20, 25 minutes?
Probably.
Okay.
Huh?
So listen, do you want to knock out finance and then?
Well, I don't know. No, I mean, they said probably 20 minutes. We can handle that, right?
Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Turn over to Mr. Zanoni. We'll lead this part of the discussion.
Okay, so this is a presentation, facilities presentation with two parts, really. The center plans for talking about plant for the HVAC system, which is a presentation and maybe some discussion questions item, as well as the second piece would be discussion of site parking options as it relates to the design of the high school.
Thank you, and I'm filling in for Steve Shergalis, and what I've heard, I think he's doing well. So
Thank you.
First of all, what we're presenting today is solely informational. We're not asking the board to make any type of decision, but we really feel because of the complexities of these two issues that we need to give the board plenty of time to hear a presentation on both the central plant HVAC options and then also on the parking options, and then continue that discussion prior in 2 weeks when we come back together as a work session. We've asked, and I believe you have materials in front of you, and I'm assuming you have all the materials that were sent to you. We're going to have Gary Baylog from our architectural team of BSHM, and then also he's going to be talking about sort of the big picture and all the issues. And then in particular, we have Evan Hammersmith, who's with Karpinski Engineering, who's been doing the analysis for us in terms of the different options. So Gary, do you want to start off, or should we start with Evan? Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. This is a very complex project, as if you couldn't have guessed that. And as we are progressing forward, we are currently in the design development stage. We met the last time at the last work session, and we reviewed the schematic design documents and budget. And at that time, we were over budget for the project. When I say over budget, it's a relative term because nothing has been bid. So when we say that we're over budget, we are over our estimate of what the cost of the project is greater than what has been budgeted. I will say this, that it was around 4%, which in the overall scheme of things is not a great deal. However, in terms of a dollar amount, it's a significant dollar amount when you're trying to find something in the project to modify in order to achieve being on the budget. And I want to just, and Steve Zanoni can correct me if I'm incorrect, but I just want to clarify something. There was a statement made earlier tonight about that the state is picking up 14% of the cost. That is 14% of the total master plan, of which the only thing that is funded currently is the high school project and the two middle school projects. And so the dollars that we have to spend are 100% being provided by the district. The state does not come back until later on when you would pass an additional bond issue to complete your master plan with the elementary schools before you would get reimbursement. So the dollars that we have to spend in terms of the budget are the dollars that we have to spend. So at schematic design, we were asked to look at several other modifications or options and to come back to the board and present those to the board for further review and a decision. As a part of our due diligence, we investigated 3 separate HVAC systems. One was what would be termed a conventional system, which is a boiler with a chiller. This is not the same type of system that you are used to seeing. This is a very efficient system, although it does use gas and electricity. The second system is completely the opposite of that. It was a geothermal system. The district did do a test well to determine what the conductivity that was available with the strata on the site, assuming that it's pretty regular throughout the site. And so our engineers came back and they determined the number of in the well field, number of boreholes that would be necessary in the well field for the size of the building and the type of building spaces that we were planning on designing. So that was the second type of system. The other system was a hybrid system, and it included a boiler and a chiller and then ice storage. Correct? That was original. That was the original hybrid. And the cost of the pure geothermal system was significantly, the first cost was significantly higher than the cost of the conventional system. There was some concerns about using the ice storage system because it was felt that maybe that was a little bit. There's some concerns about potential maintenance issues, some other things. So we were asked to investigate another hybrid system, and after some discussion, we determined that potentially we could do a smaller geothermal well field with some micro boilers to supplement the heating and a cooling tower to supplement the cooling for the building. And so we've done that. We did a life cycle cost analysis, and the 35-year life cycle cost, total cost between the two was it was in favor of the hybrid system, and this is a comparison between the
Gary, between which two?
This is the difference between the conventional boiler chiller and the hybrid system.
Okay.
So the estimated difference in savings was about $550,000 in favor of the geothermal. That's over 35 years, and these are based on the numbers for utility costs, et cetera, are based. These are published numbers. They're published by the Department of Energy or whomever. So these are just numbers that we're just kind of pulling out of a hat. These are published numbers. The hybrid option has a higher first cost of about $720,000. So at this time, our estimates for the project are about 4% over. So there's a challenge there to bring the project back into that. And so this cost for the hybrid would be in addition to that 4% difference that we currently have. The other thing that we were tasked in looking at was some options for parking on the parking for the project.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
On the geothermal, so basically from because it's a percentage standpoint, at this juncture, the difference between the high-efficiency boiler chiller and the hybrid geothermal is approximately, the geothermal has about a 30% premium, 30% more cost than the conventional system, correct? Approximately, if I do my math right.
700,000.
700,000.
720.
720 over 2 million is about 30%, correct? Okay. And then the life cycle cost of the 550,000 over the 35-year span, it's about 4.5%, 5%, I believe. The conventional cost is that. One of the things I was going to ask for, I think I mentioned to Mr. Shigalis, was right now we have a 30-year projection based upon the numbers from the feds, I assume. Can we craft a scenario where, say, 10 years from now, that we see our utility costs have a big jump up? I'm trying to, for example, if we saw, like Mr. Bellington was mentioning, a carbon tax, or there's fracking's banned, if the cost of natural gas and electricity sees a sudden surge, and then it has the normal progression, I would be curious to see if in 10 years from now, how that impacts, what kind of an impact that might have on a life cycle cost.
Yeah, I think we've tried to run some of those numbers.
So
and
we're
we'll-
going to get into more of that
Yes.
conversation
Yep.
after
Yep.
you do your.
Evan's,
okay.
I'm just going to give you an
Okay.
overview, and
Okay.
then if you got specific questions about the HVAC, Evan's going to handle those.
If you do that, what's the basis for determining those costs?
I'll let Evan
I mean,
answer
it's
that.
just- okay,
I don't want to.
That's fine.
I don't want to confuse the issue. We looked at 3 different options for parking. That's not to say that there could not be some more permutations of that, but in the budget, in the cost estimate that was developed, we included the parking, which is around the school proper. In other words, there are 2 drives, and it's the parking that's associated with that. Currently on site, including the parking that you have on the stadium, you have 228 spaces. With the option of just parking around the building, you end up with about roughly 80 spaces. That does not include any additional parking that could be developed on the stadium site or if it's retained there, because there's some consideration for a freestanding building out there, so we haven't really got there yet. So the other option is to develop a portion of the ball field site. We're showing an additional, I believe, 200. I think that the total number of parking spaces that you've have would be 294 spaces, and again, that does not include any additional parking spaces on the stadium site. And then the third scheme, and it also includes the parking around the perimeter. The third scheme would include parking around the building, but then it would include angled parking off of Goodnor and off of Washington, and that's about 180 spaces. Now, there's another option. You could add maybe between 45 and 60 spaces in the space that is between the 2 existing play fields, or parallel to the East Drive, kind of stacked next to where the current softball field is. Now, we haven't developed that yet because we kind of wanted to look at the 3 obvious different strategies. And I think you have a little matrix prepared there. And what we did was we went and we listed kind of the pros and the cons for each of those options. And so, and that's strictly to kind of help you make a decision. Now, there is a cost that's associated with that. The cost for parking just on the drives adjacent to the building is included in our base cost estimate. If you go with Scheme B, what they're showing right now is about almost $800,000. It's $794,000 for those additional spaces. If you go with Scheme C, it's about $430,000. So again, those 2 costs would be in addition to the challenge that we have with the 4% bump in where we're, the difference between where we're at in the estimate and the budget, those costs would be in addition. So you have two things to kind of consider of those two things which really kind of impact significantly the entire project, the HVAC system, and then how we develop the rest of the site. I will say this also too, just in talking about the site. both of your current baseball fields, the softball and the baseball field, are not regulation. I think you probably know that. They are kind of squished into what was available, I'm assuming what was available on the site and what seemed prudent to do in terms of if you're going to hit a foul ball and it's going to end up on cedar or someplace else. So in option, in scheme B, which is to place a significant amount of parking on one of the ball fields, you are going to lose one of those fields. You'll either use, and most likely you will lose the hardball field because the amount of space that would be left would probably be just sufficient enough for a relocation of either the softball field staying where it's at or having it relocated. The impact to the design of the building is in terms of dollars, because we at this point we have just the first cost dollars. Philosophically, you can consider anything you want, but we do have a budget, and so some options that you have available. One option would be to further reduce the scope of the project, and I think we have nibbled away and pruned the program for the building, and if someone has some suggestions on what we can do to further reduce the scope of the project in terms of the square footage, we're open to that. Another option would be to change the design aesthetic of the exterior, primarily of the additions. We know that we have a 1926 building, and I think our intent would be to keep the part of the addition that is associated with that as close as possible to the original architecture, but certainly we could provide a wonderful design that is not based on a 1926 kind of ethos, and have really kind of a jewel sitting next to a 1926 jewel. So, but that, our architecture, our feelings, architecture is kind of a product of its time, and if we're talking about using some different materials in terms of getting the building to the efficiency that envelope needs to be, you would have to consider stepping back from maybe some of the more traditional looks and materials. The other thing is that we are scheduled to be net zero ready, and there's a number of components that go along with that are not part of the HVAC system. They're either ancillary to that, in support of that, or they are separate things, but all very important. So if in terms of the overall scheme, you could look at the HVAC system as the most highest priority in terms of those sustainable issues, and make a decision based on that. One of the other options is to do a combination of any of the above to try to achieve that. We've added another one, which I think is probably the most prudent thing to do, and that would be to consider bidding the hybrid HVAC central plant as an alternate. At this time, what you've been presented with, what the board's been presented with, and the team, is the best information that we have currently, because the system hasn't been none of the systems have been fully developed, and we do not have, as I said before, this is an estimate that's prepared by the construction manager, And so it is not a bid price. It doesn't take into consideration a couple things. It doesn't take into consideration what the fully vetted design is actually worth 100%, because somebody isn't. It's an estimate. It's based on a narrative and the larger pieces of equipment and not all of the pieces and parts. And the second thing is that we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball that tells us what the bidding climate is going to be like in 9 months. It could be better, it could be worse. But it's certainly, the estimate does not reflect any kind of competitive bidding aspect. So one of the recommendations would be that because we are going to be taking prices or getting bids on some other alternates in the project, so this would just be another alternate. However, there would be a cost attached to doing some additional engineering to develop that alternate. But we think that it would be within the realm of what we currently have in terms of the overall budget for the project in order to do that. So if anybody has any questions on parking, I'll answer those. If you've got questions on the HVAC system, I'll let Evan handle that.
On the parking, if you think about the parking on Goodner, on the street parking, what is that? Just to cut in or back? What does that look like? You're not, it's on the street.
Yeah, I think I sent out some diagrams with that. Basically what it is they would move the city sidewalk would be moved in, and you'd have like a 60 or 45 degree angle. You'd pull in and then you'd back out. I will say that this option has been broached informally with the city, but we've not come and said, do you think this is, feasible? I think it is feasible. There's a cost attached to it, and we need to discuss things like who removes the snow, who's responsible for maintenance on it, how do you police that, and in effect, how do you keep who parks there, and how do you manage that? Those kind of things. So, and the other thing is I don't believe, because it is off your property, that the state under their CFAP program would not pay for that, because it's improvements that are done off of your site. So.
On the parking, I sent. Of course. My thoughts on the parking, I think on the scenario A, obviously, we're going to have the 80 spaces on site, even if we throw in, I think, of the wraparound for the football field. I don't think we're going to burn through all of them, so it's still 20 or 30 more spaces. But I think even the scenario A, let's say it's 110 spaces, I don't think that's going to be sufficient for what we want. I think on the option B, with the price tag of $800,000, I think that's not going to happen. I would be curious to see if a smaller lot would. Yeah.
I was trying to get some prices on that today, but if you just wanted to kind of prorate, if that's 294 spaces and it's $800,000 or $790,000, if you prorate it by the space, you would probably come pretty close to what it would cost. So if you want to pick, one of the simple things to do is if you said this many spaces on site, period, then what's the minimum number that you can live with? Right now you have 228. So if 228 is the number, we could shoot for that.
Again, I'd be curious, because I think the scenario B with the 300 spaces and that price tag, I think, and the consumption of taking green space and converting it to paved, in my opinion, that's not going to, as you saw from an hour of public comment in regards to a geothermal system, I think this is, I don't think that's a viable one. And on the third one, on the scenario C, I think the angled spaces on Goodner is actually farther away than the city lot, and my concern would be on the ones north of the football field, that because of the slope and the grade, we'd probably have to be looking at a retaining wall, which I could see with the high school students might not be my preference would not to have that. So I think part of it, right behind the building and the portion north of the east field, would be interesting. I guess my question would be, how firm how much of a dialogue and discussion we can have with the city of Cleveland Heights, because I know they've been very enthusiastic about using their facility across the street. If we could get that more codified as far as, okay, what are they willing to put into the plate? What's our cost going to be with that? I think a combination of surface spaces in the garage, as well as some variation of what you presented here, I think that's going to give us maybe a compromise for everybody, because we need more than Plan A. The other two are a little pricey, and we have a lot of pushback on, and conversely, we don't want to have, I don't think, I can totally empathize with staff members. It's fine in September to walk from the parking garage, but come January, I could see it being a different dialogue. So I think if we could get some more detail on what the city's willing to do or bring up to the plate, I think that could help us make a decision a little.
Yeah, I had a conversation today with Kara O'Donnell, and she's aware of what we're looking at, and so we've kind of talked about having some informal discussions to kind of, maybe get, what would be acceptable to them. The other thing is that there needs to be a discussion if there is any indication of removing one of those ball fields, that needs to be taken someplace, that, the venue has to be someplace else, and so you need to have a secondary discussion about that before you make a decision to remove that.
Now, if we use some of that space near the ball fields, we're gonna definitely lose one of the ball fields.
It really depends on the number of spaces that you want to put there, because you could probably carve out space for, I'm going to say, between 40 and 60 cars somewhere in there and still maintain the two ball fields that you currently have. But, what that looks like is kind of up because it has to do with the topography of the site at that point. But
if we were to do something in that area, would we have to have some kind of covering or protection or fence or something for the cars? I mean, is there an additional cost related to?
Depends on what kind of hitters you got in your softball team.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, I think you're talking. It's like
I'm thinking
a driving range. You get to put the netting up. I think
you got to do something.
I would say that would be far less expensive than finding another. It'd be cheaper for us to put a 50-foot pole with mesh along its side as opposed to.
Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Currently, right now on the hardball field, you've got some fencing, but you're parking cars down the third base line currently.
Right.
So I don't know what kind of damage you're getting, and you're also batting away on your softball field towards that parking. So, I don't know how. As I said, I don't know what kind of hitters you have on the softball field, but you can certainly gauge. If it ends up being a 10-foot fence instead of a 6-foot fence, well, then maybe that's what you put up. Maybe the top portion is some kind of, protective kind of, that's up during ball season. I don't know.
But yeah, but like I said, it goes back to, I think the key is going to be what's the city willing to do between the garage and the eastern portion of the parking lot, the surface lot. If we can get 40 spaces in the lot and then a good portion of a floor in the garage, which we would never need a whole floor, but I think if we could get that once we have that sort of solidified, or not solidified, but less mushy, then it gives us a sense of, okay, how many spaces do we then feel we need on site? I think one of the major problems we've always had has been visitor parking, is that I think we need to get a good sense of how many spaces do we think we're going to allocate for visitor parking, because I think that's going to then give us a sense of, okay, how many staff people are actually going to park on the Heights lot, on the block. Then we can figure out where, or do we go into the field, do we go around? So I almost think we got to visitor parking and what the city's willing to offer. It, to me, sort of then dictates, in my opinion, then dictates what our options are going to be, because I think that goes back to what's the city willing to do. I mean, are they going to give us the spaces for free, or we got to buy a permit? If we're buying a permit, what's it going to cost?
Listen up, chief negotiator.
Okay. Who's that? Okay, I'll go. You guys always keep me out.
that is certainly a consideration, but that's from my standpoint, that's not a design issue. That's a political issue in terms of what kind of arrangements you can make with them. I think if we're given some parameters, then we can certainly beat the bushes and come up with a design that meets those parameters. But currently, right now, we've got there's a couple things flying around. Either all in on the site or maybe all in off the site and with just a minimum around the building. But if we're charged with a specific number of spaces and we know that some of those spaces are achievable and acceptable off-site, then we can certainly design to that. And this is, as I said before, we have not really started to look at any additional parking that could be preserved or enhanced or added over at the stadium. All those numbers don't reflect with the exception of what you have on your existing. That's the
228 does include those
Yes.
spaces around, okay.
Yes.
Are you looking
Okay.
for guidance tonight?
Am I looking for guidance tonight?
Or I mean, obviously you'd love it.
I would love to have guidance tonight, but I really didn't come with any expectation other than to kind of this is kind of a I'm going to say a wake up call. In other words, these are two significant number issues in terms of the cost of the project, and in order to move forward with the balance of the site design, we obviously have to know what we're doing in terms of parking, and in order to move forward with the mechanical system for the project, we need to know where we're going in terms of. But as I said before, I think with the mechanical system, if we look at considering doing this as an alternate, you develop both simultaneously, and then the market makes it a lot easier for you to make an informed decision because now you've got an actual number rather than just an estimate. And at that point, you'll know the cost of all the other components of the building. So you'll have if a miracle happens, you may be able to include that within the current budget.
Gary, back to parking for a minute. The one design consideration that I'd like to either hear from you on now or probably more reasonable to say at our next meeting is how can we, I came into this conversation leaning toward doing everything we can to maximize the green space and encourage the parking at the lot across the street that the city owns, and understanding all of Eric's points that he made, that those have to be fleshed out. But I clearly hear that staff have heard from staff that they have not only just concerns about walking across the street in February if there's a lot of snow or whatever, but the pickup and drop off of materials issues. So I would assume that you might be able to come up with some design elements that have some creative use of spaces around a couple of the major doors that allow for those kinds of temporary parking for staff.
We've talked about maybe some 15-minute, load in, load out zones where it would be close to the building, some of the major doors, exits from the building, where you could, obviously you'd have to walk across the street, get your car, bring it back.
Right.
I think in some of the conversations we talked about frequency. In other words, if I understand that some faculty or teachers carry, schlep was the word, a lot of stuff every day, but at the same token, some folks maybe just carry a briefcase every day. So it's a kind of an order of magnitude issue in terms of what is the real impact. I know that most of us who work in cities do not park right next to where we work. We park someplace and then we walk. So and if you look on the site, if you park on the other side of the stadium, You may, on a daily basis, still walk a considerable distance to get into the building. So I'm not, from my standpoint, I'm not advocating one or the other. I'm just saying that there are philosophical debates that go on with this, and there are also, I'm going to say, contractual issues that you'd have to resolve in terms of negotiating with the city and whomever else to kind of come up with some guidance. But we are going to need that guidance at some point.
I have a question for you. I got a question for Steve, because the other Steve's not here. In regards to the footballs, we were supposed to get a study, design, ideas for stuff.
Got it.
When is that?
Got it.
Oh, when do we get to?
Well,
Showed it to me tonight.
Oh, okay.
We've had discussions, and what we are looking at. Am I allowed to say that we're looking at probably 4 options.
Okay.
One option would be a single building that's on the west side, kind of the northwest side.
Okay.
One option would be to have a building which kind of wraps around the corner rather than a rectangular building, one that kind of wraps around the corner. We broke the building apart into 2 parts, 3 parts, so that you could have home and visitors. Then you could locate it in kind of maybe the appropriate location. And then a 4th option was to try and think if we could somehow attach part of it to the building and get double use out of that space rather than, so we have all but the 4th one, because the 4th one is just tough. So I left with Steve, and I can send PDFs out if you want those PDFs of those. So we met once. The square footage was more than what.
Right.
We had a program. We met the program square footage, but there's a lot of potties.
Well, the reason I ask is because now the bathrooms are the reflection of the seating capacity, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because right now we get by with grandfathered, which is why we have 2 porta-johns. As opposed to if we build new, then we got to go to the crazy amount. In those different scenarios, what kind of an impact does that have on the parking? Because that was what I was looking for. Is if we know in each of the scenarios we still end up with at least 30 spaces, then we can at least count those into the space count, which is what I was trying to. Really, what I was looking for.
It would impact the current parking scheme, but that may not be. The current parking scheme may not be the best, because I think what happened was that you just kind of paved where you could. There is another issue there. You have that tower building, and there is an easement for access to that. So the question is what is acceptable in terms of providing an easement? Do we have to kind of stay with the easement that's shown on the site plan, or is it just for access for repairs, or et cetera, and can they take another route to go there? So, and that impacts that also.
And then I guess my question for Steve would be, since the other Steve's not here, okay, you're our owner's rep, and your compensation was mentioned previously this evening. What can we, I guess, with the city, who's got to talk to the city to sort of get this a little more from, hey, we're interested, to, okay, you're interested, what's that mean? How do we get that codified so we can then say to our design team, hey, here's what we know we've got the city willing to do, or offering, and the cost with that, so we can get. Exactly. Oh, yeah. I'm talking the lot around to me, I'm looking at the price tag. Yikes. So in my opinion, to a degree, a little bit on Washington, and then the garage, and the city lot is really compelling to me, because it's,
As Gary mentioned, what we'd like to do is do a follow-up meeting with some of the key city officials now that we have some layouts. We had a preliminary one, so we had some ideas of what sort of the basic parameters were, and that's why we wanted to go in there without giving them a solution. And that's where we've heard some more information about what they're willing to do. We'd like to do a follow-up to show them what we have, and then also what can they do, and start that, what I wouldn't call it negotiations, but what I would call it is getting information from them, what their expectations are. And then the other piece of it is we need to provide them with our expectations, and I think we're pretty close to that. I mean, if we were to go to scenario with the city, it's pretty obvious. This is a long-term agreement, and we want to make sure that they'll maintain what we have. What are our rights in terms of where it's going to be? Because we've questioned that. What is the most ideal for our teachers and staff who are in that building? So we want to get some. We don't want to be put in some corner and say that would not be acceptable. So I think Steve has worked on some real parameters to say here's what we want. So we want to do that follow-up meeting very quickly, and we'd really like to do it. We're coming up to the point where we have to go in front of their planning commission, and you have to go early. And so we want to get some ideas on the site issues there. I will say this, we have a little more time in terms of, he doesn't want to hear this, on the decision-making for parking. I believe that it's going to take us a little bit longer, so we have more options in terms, we're not up against the piece, and that's why, but we don't have as much time on the central plant, and that's where Gary and I discussed today the possibility of going to having an alternate. And we, as you know, in the past, we've been pretty successful, when you look at the stadium project. And as said, because right now we might be forcing ourselves into decisions that maybe we may regret later on if we get monies available. So that was one of the reasonings.
Well, I mean, I agree. On the parking, I think the issue in parking is that we do have time, to a degree, we have time to hammer out the specifics, but we need to know, at least from a budgetary standpoint.
Yes.
It's like, okay, are we going to spend, do we want to spend 100,000 more? We need to figure out at least what our options are. And if we have 2 or 3 options that have the same price tag, then that still gives you folks more time to haggle and figure out which is going to be the best one. If the parking on Washington and Goodnor is completely not open to 14% from the state, that really, I mean, it's still only 14%, but at these price tags here, that's
significant.
It's a good chunk of change.
And also those, just to reiterate what Gary said, we don't know, again, that's not our property.
Exactly.
And so what are our rights and again, that'd be negotiation.
So we would be eating into our property, no?
It's really the right-of-way.
Oh, it's in the city
It's
right-of-way.
the city right-of-way.
Okay. It's our property, but city right-of-way for easement.
Yeah, it'd be our usage, but it'd be sitting in the right of
It's called a tree
way.
lawn issue. It's a,
Yeah, we've gotten rid of the
you
tree lawn.
You can't do anything with a tree lawn, but if you don't cut the lawn, then you get in trouble with the city.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then I guess my only issue on the central plan, which is the more pressing one, really ends up being, like I said, that scenario where if we saw a spike up in the future, how that impacts
Yeah.
the long-term cost. But I don't need the number now. That would be the one thing I'm looking for.
Well, we've done a quick analysis based on some of the questions and maybe.
Any more questions on parking?
Go ahead. I think there's some more questions. There might be a little bit more general and beyond parking, but Eric, I think.
I mean, I don't have a question. I just have a preference. That I would still be interested in finding out what that middle lot would look like between the two fields, a small, like 50-car kind of thing. And or some combination of that plus a smaller version of the Goodnor of Washington. I mean, does that drive the price up to where we're going to be right back at the, 750 or 800 or something, or is there, I mean, I don't think we need the full, I'm with the other Eric, that I don't think we need the full, 294 spots. I don't know if we need the full 228, especially if we can get some across the street, across Cedar, but if we can get in the 140, 150 range, that would be.
See, it would be, if you could kind of establish what the number is for the number of spaces on the site.
Right.
Whether on site means, around the perimeter of Washington, Goodnor, and in there, or some other scenario, then we can do that. But the issue is the number is floating, and
I did want to point out, I brought this up at Cabinet today, and I did ask Cabinet, and we really need to talk to them, speak with them, what they also think that number is. So what I think it's sort of a three-piece that and I've asked Cabinet to kind of, hey, we really need some guidance. The board is going to look to you to say, hey, this is a good idea or not a bad. We don't want to present something that all of a sudden the staff thinks is still not a solution. So we did bring that up. So I think part of this, besides just the city part, it's also making sure that we have buy-in and understanding from the staff.
Well, piggybacking on the other Eric, in your scenario, you've got 80 spaces. You throw in 30 from the football field wraparound, that's 110. If you did a little bit on Washington, let's say right behind the building in the east field, that's another about 40 spaces as well. That gets you to 150. Or you do a small lot of 40 spaces inside the ball field, that gets you 40. You're still at around 150 on the site. And then that's still, that goes back to the cabinet and staff. Okay, how many visitor spaces do we think we're going to want? How many staff people? Okay, at 8:30 or whenever, when staff starts coming in, how many folks? Because I know that was with University Heights with the planning. If we've got X number of staff people, but only a far fewer spaces, how many spaces do we use? Because I know frequently the spaces around the football field, not necessarily are currently heavily used, but in this new format, they might be, okay, that you want to park on site, here's your space. So I think we really got to get a sense from staff, how many staff are parking on site and what times during the day, because I think that's going to help dictate the need and necessity. Because if you've got folks coming later in the day, for maintenance and what have you, you don't need necessarily, 300 spaces at one time.
I agree with all those things. I think one thing you mentioned, Gary, that I think is really important is if you're in the discussions with the city, again, what's the long-term commitment they'll make? Because if you're saying that I'm basing the number of parking spaces on site on the fact that I know I'm going to have other spaces, that may be true for 3 years, but what happens when they want to develop across the street?
Right.
And then all of a sudden we are now stuck. The other thing is parking versus flow. When school ends at the end of the day and you have a bunch of angled spaces and a bunch of people trying to back out into the street while you got a bunch of other people trying to drive down the street, that's going to be a consideration as well. I think your point about policing those angled spaces is a huge issue, because I think you're going to have any given day you might have a bunch of people parking over there who just felt like there's a parking space there, and we're not going to. I don't think we're prepared to devote the staff to be standing out there all day long to make sure that only our people. And I'm guessing, just a wild guess here, that Cleveland Heights isn't going to say, "Geez, we'll just dedicate like 5 policemen or police people to do that." So I think those are all considerations. In terms of coming to a number, that seems like a reasonable request from the board, and I agree that we need to hear from the staff first. So,
I was told we had 8 full-time police officers dedicated to the Heights of Ed, so
Well, he's stuck on that 5 number for some other reason.
Oh, okay, 5,
Yeah.
okay, there's 5 then.
I guess I'm trying to understand process a little bit. Last month, we were talking about trying to find 4%. This month, as we talk, we got 2 pieces here, and both add to the 4%. So as I'm trying to process this, I'm thinking, what's on the table in terms of trying to get where we need to get to? And a couple of things I wonder. If we think about, okay, for example, as we play around and try to get to the 4%, is any of Wiley on the table? Or we're already at GMP for Wiley, and
That's a very good question. We, as you know, we've done pretty well on Wiley so far.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
So there has been some savings. We have not gotten to the GMP for Wiley on the site work. The construction manager is working on that right now. Again, if it comes in lower, we gain those dollars back. So anything that we can save on I would just include all enabling, we can throw into this project, but we probably won't know that till the end of the year. But that's not bad, all right? I mean, that's why this, some of these alternates may work, because it might be that we determine that an alternate doesn't become an alternate, it just becomes part of the base because we found enough dollars. But I want to go back to your first question, the 4%. We feel very confident when we were at that 4%, we did the targets, that we can get to the project that you saw and you agreed to as the schematic design. It's this, these two additional amounts kind of put us right over that edge where we're not absolutely certain we can get the project. This adds to the 4%. We're a little bit concerned. We are concerned right there.
So if I understand that you're comfortable that if we're not adding these little pieces, that we can get
Yes,
back to
and
what
we said that at the schematic
right.
design meeting, yes.
And so,
Yes.
you know, when we're talking about the kind of money that we're talking about, you know, like the 2 million, for example, represents, what, 1.7%?
Yes, that's right. Is that right? Yeah, yes, about 1.7, around 2%, yes.
Which 2 million, what are you referring to? The full geothermal?
The full geothermal?
Full geothermal.
Full geothermal.
Because that's an addition to, I
Right.
mean, the baseline.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the baseline is on that yet, because within the context of the schematic design, something's in there.
Right.
It's not clear to me what's in there yet.
Right,
but
in
I'm
the
just
base,
assuming-
it's not in, the full geothermal is not in the base number, which was approximately 4% over, but we feel we can make those 4% without changing the design of any consequence. When we add, if we go to the full geothermal, we add, to find another $2 million in savings, we're not going to be able to do that. So what we would have to do, if you wanted to do that, is change some of the other parameters, such as Gary explained, less square footage or design, things like that. The 2 million would be very hard. Personally, I think it's possible maybe to find for the hybrid, that's about 700,000 right now, and that makes a lot of sense in terms of an alternate, but that's something we need to work out more and present you with more information.
Well, can we go to that topic
Yes.
now, Ron? You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, because I actually want to go back. I mean, you're talking to us, you presented Gary as sort of wanting us to consider two options tonight, those being the hybrid or the conventional high-efficiency boiler chiller. I guess I want to hear, other than the $2 million, why are you no longer recommending that we even consider a full geothermal? I really need to understand that. And the one specific question within that is, does a full geothermal require that ice storage issue, which I understood? Okay, so.
The full geothermal does not, it has nothing to do with ice storage.
Okay.
The dollar amount, the first cost dollar amount is the only, from my standpoint, philosophically, is the only reason why I would.
Why you're no longer recommending that at this point as a third
Yes.
option? Okay, okay.
If the dollars were in place, I would have no issue in recommending a full geothermal.
So the issues that were raised by our facility staff at that last meeting around some of the maintenance and upkeep and those other issues that at least raised as a question, you're comfortable that those could be addressed through design and choices and all that?
Yeah, I think there was some misunderstanding with those comments, because the comments were being made about a system which was an earlier geothermal design, which had kind of a distributed heat pumps throughout the building. This is a central plant, so it's really a different animal, and all of the infrastructure that's other than the central plant in the building for all the systems is essentially the same.
Okay.
As Ron mentioned process, and I know I mentioned in notes that I sent to Mr. Shigalis, one of the things was when you're talking your impact to design, the second one about the design aesthetic of the wraps, I guess more for the.
I knew that would get your attention. I knew that would get your attention. It was like, Toro, Toro.
I just wanted to articulate that. I guess the reason why I became comfortable with the wraps and the interior alterations was predicated upon a specific design aesthetic. So if that design aesthetic moves into play, I'm trying to be very I would be very disappointed and have to reevaluate my support.
Our intention with the overall budget would be to take the 1926 and the wraps and do as much as we possibly can within the budget to make those. I'm not going to say we're not going to duplicate the, but it will be.
It would look the same to everyone but the untrained, to pretty much
yes,
everyone.
But what we're saying is that if we're given some opportunity to, on the balance of the additions, to not adhere to some type of strict aesthetic that says, when we're not talking about proportion or fenestration, in terms of sizes, openings, and that kind of stuff, we're talking about construction, materials, because there are a lot of materials out there that, if you're talking about trying to get the building to some type of higher efficiency and be net zero ready, then we need to start thinking about some of those things. So that's really what we're talking about.
No, and like I said with the last one, I've been very, very happy with where the design's been going from the massing. I think some of the detail work has been very, very good. I've been very, very happy with that. It's just a matter of I certainly need to, I guess, especially because there's TV cameras, is that, I've been very, very happy with things. And if I saw us sliding away from that, I would be very disappointed, is a polite way to put it.
But Gary, to be clear, what you might be suggesting is just with the change of materials, you might still be able to create a symbiotic design element that maybe you might be happy if you saw it.
Well, exactly, right.
Because again, it's a matter of trade-offs. It's a matter of,
exactly.
If we're trying to get to an end point, everybody gives a little.
Exactly.
You have to be really careful. Everybody doesn't.
That's right.
We had a discussion too. We had a meeting with the historic committee from the FAC, and frankly, if this building on the National Register, and if you were going for funding and public funding, you would have to follow the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines. And what they say is that you cannot do a replication when you're doing an addition. You have to be contemporary but compatible. So we're actually going a step beyond that and trying to make something that looks like it was 1926, at least for that piece. But the balance of the building, I think, will be attractive, handsome, whatever kind of attributes you want to assign to it. Sympathetic. I think you'll be happy. So, but we're I'm just letting you know that if we have that latitude, we may be able to work the estimate so that we can include some of these other things that seem to be also very important to the community.
I would certainly give you that latitude. I would go so far as to say that my preference would be to still, at this point, see if there's a way to push toward that 2 million to get the full geothermal. And I would be willing, and this will be, we can have this battle. I would be willing to. I think the 1929 needs to look like 1929. But if that's not on the table, if it's what is behind, if it's all the newer stuff behind, I'm certainly open to discussing what that would look like if we could manage to come up with 2 million somehow. If there may be a compromise in between to where we can find something.
I don't know if we could. I don't know if you could pull two million out of that, because it's a big number. Well, the 4% that we were talking.
3 million more than what we're talking.
Right. Ron, to your question, the 4% that we were talking about extracting, that was broken down into a lot of different categories. So it was $100,000 here, $50,000 here, $20,000 there. So as a percentage of a component, it was rather small. But when you added it up, it achieved that. But to take one single component and say, you got to put $2 million more into it, that's a pretty significant nut to crack. So.
Gary, say, and I don't know if it's Evan, Steve, Gary, John, some combination of all of you, but for me to understand that give and take, because I'm absolutely where Eric is, which is I want to try to make this happen, and if we can't make it happen, or if it has to be bid as an alternate, I want us to consider even the full as an alternate possibly. I at least want to have that conversation and think about that. But when you're talking about, I get that we can't go forward with this project and just say, we're going to spend $2 million more on this high school than we had planned. We can't do that. We can't do that. What it means is that we would have to take $2 million out, obviously. What would it mean in terms of square footage? If you're telling us that it couldn't be, that $2 million couldn't come from the exterior finishes from 1926 back, what kind of square footage, how much would we have to cut out of this building to make that happen?
Well, let's answer that question first. Yeah, 2 million would be.
I know it's these are all very much approximations, but
8,000 square feet? That sound right? Thank you, Mr. Selway. Monticello.
8,800.
Hey.
Good, Eric.
Thank you.
It's almost 9,000 square feet.
Which is huge.
It's 10 classrooms.
Yeah, that would be 10 classrooms.
Yeah.
Well, now Steve mentioned, I mean, it tends to, once again, Wiley's linchpin. I know from the accountability committee, we've seen good numbers coming in on the enabling projects.
Yes.
So I guess, when can we anticipate, assuming we start seeing some green lights, when will we have a real good sense from the bid cost on the enabling project?
I think by the end of the year,
So
if everything just goes as planned, we'll have bid out that work.
So it's conceivable that, again, if we see a number, a little bit here, a little bit there, in the aggregate, we could see a good portion, a good percentage of that, at the very least, the hybrid cost, and even conceivably close in on the full geothermal from the monies from the enabling.
Yeah, and just, I get the timing, Eric, and I appreciate that. We've already talked about two significant expense alternates.
Right.
Lanes 9 and 10 of the swimming pool and the second high bay for CTE. So then the question becomes, I can't imagine that through this process we'll come out with
all of them.
A bid where we can choose all of the above.
We would have to prioritize them. There is, and I'm doing this for Gary because I have a high regard for him, because we are taking a conservative approach on these numbers, all right? There are other contingencies. We do have a contingency for quite a large owner's contingency in our budget. We're really using that for any unforeseen conditions. And these are things that we just can't buy with the GMP. And the biggest unforeseen condition will be the demo, because we might discover that there's some sort of, which has happened in older buildings. All of a sudden, we all thought we had all these, through the years, you've taken out asbestos, you've taken out things. What if we find something that just was never uncovered? So that's a huge risk that's on our shoulders. The other risk is then the underground. That is when they build the foundations, if they find poor soils and things like that. Once we get through those pieces in the construction, we're going to have a large, if we don't use it, or we use only a percentage of it, we're going to have some dollars sitting there. And the hard part is, how do you get these alternates to work where you can buy them late, as opposed to buying them when you've prioritized? There's some you just got to buy from day one. A good example would be the geothermal system. It's really hard to build a pool unless you buy it there. But the high bay space, we might be able to work with the construction manager as something as a later thing where we're not using bid savings or using the CM's contingency. We start using some of our contingencies. And this is something we're weighing right now. We don't want to put ourselves in the position of risk. And I know I put you through a lot through the stadium, but as you can see, we got through it and we got what we wanted, but we didn't overpromise. We said, hey, this is what we're going to get. So we're right in this sort of sweet spot right now because we don't, as Gary said, we don't have full set of documents, of design documents. That's why I always like the alternates. My hope would be, and Gary and I talked about this, was at least maybe getting to the hybrid or to way through the schematic design development, it becomes base. There's a way to move that out as an alternate. It just is going to take us some time to really analyze this.
Remind me, we're just one thing on the contingency. Remind me, I'm assuming that we'll know about where we are with the contingencies for the enabling projects again at the end of the year.
Yes.
But what was our overall number for the contingencies for the enabling projects?
It's approximately 5% of 15 million, which is.
So those would be, if I remember,
those would be available.
Available and rolled
Yes.
into the contingency for the high school
High
project.
school, we can move into high school.
Okay.
5%
Go ahead, Cal, sorry.
That was 15, but then we also have another contingency within the high school project itself.
Yeah, no, I know, but
Yeah.
I was
Right.
thinking about the enabling projects and the timing for
Right.
knowing about that.
And I will point out one thing, if you probably recall, you probably look at this and say, gee, Steve, there's a hell of a lot of contingencies going on. We have within the estimates that we've received from the Gilbane-Ozan team, which they're supposed to do, they have a design contingency in there and a construction contingency. The reason is we don't have full sets of working drawings. That thing those go to zero, at least the design does, and the construction stays with them as part of this CM at risk GMP methodology. But it really helps having those because we want to keep you out of trouble. We don't want to be, there are too many projects I've seen with districts where everybody hopes it's going to come in at a certain price and maybe a market condition puts us at a disadvantage. We're taking a very conservative approach.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think I'm concerned that we start having things said that start to take on legs. And one example I think that could take on legs, and we haven't, it's not a real conversation yet, is that we can raise money to do stuff like geothermal. That does not, in my mind, seem to be a realistic piece. It was put out there tonight, but I just can't imagine.
Unless that money can be raised by next, let's say, March, when we sign a GMP, then we can do it. We cannot sign a GMP for something we don't have money or you can fundraise. And that happens not just for public entities, but I'm working on a couple of nonprofit projects and they can't start because they haven't fundraised.
Okay, I guess my concern is that when those things come
Yes.
up, suddenly they start walking.
Right.
And then,
Right.
at some point later
Right.
down the road, we have to deal with it.
Right.
And it seems to me, I know we've had some conversation about fundraising going on, but I'm not sure if we're really, getting any traction on that at all. There could be potentially, and I just raised the question, we have other pieces to this puzzle. Like there's the COPS money and, there's different pieces of money that's here. But we also have commitment of PI money to support future borrowing and that kind of thing. And I don't know if we get to the point that we understand how that money can be leveraged or not leveraged.
We've leveraged the money for PI as a COPS, and that's part of our budget. And I don't think you can. I will be very frank. You can't leverage any more PI against. We went to what we felt was comfortable, what you need other PI money for. You have other buildings and other needs.
Right. I mean, I agree with that, but I'm just saying it's one of those kind of things that can.
Yes, have legs. I agree. Yes, I think that's a very good point, and I think you need to keep educating the community that, hey, this isn't like we have money everywhere to do these
Yeah, I
things.
think the idea that, oh, you could raise some money, yeah, perhaps that's conceivable, but it's not within for the geothermal, it's not conceivable within our timeline. If you had the paperwork signed, hey, here's a check for $1 million or a grant, hey, that's great, but with our timeline, we don't have that.
He wouldn't. We have
you can't.
Fred Rogers here, who's from the Gilbane-Ozanne team. He knows he wouldn't let. He couldn't agree to that. Unless you can show him the money, he can't build it. He can't build it.
I just wonder if it makes sense to hear what.
Yeah, Evan has a few. Why don't we have Evan follow up on some of those questions that came through to us?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Everyone prefaced their message with their Cleveland Heights street cred. Well, I'm from Lakewood, so we're the Cleveland Heights of the West Side. Anyway, it's best I can offer.
We'll accept that.
Best I can offer. Okay, there's been some discussion about the life cycle. First, let me just couple housekeeping items. With the life cycle, what we did from our meeting last Tuesday, Alan was there and some others, we added some additional factors into the total life cycle for both systems, one being makeup water costs for a cooling tower. These are all small numbers. They don't really change the outcome a lot, but they do. The way it shakes out when we add in a couple $1,000s per year for makeup water, and add in some additional maintenance dollars for the systems. The life cycle differential between the two comes out to about $642,000, so that's a little different from the $550 I think you mentioned. So that's just a little bit additional savings that would be shown with the hybrid option.
Remember the approximate on the number for the full?
The full geo, I don't think we didn't.
Had an early estimate, I believe. Yeah, I just didn't
Right.
bring that. with me.
I'd have to go back. I
All
don't
right.
know if I brought that with me. I don't think I thought maybe I had something, but maybe not.
It's okay.
I'll have to come back to that. Secondly, there was some questions that came up about, I know Eric, you had mentioned, what about gas prices? Do we have any read on what would happen if there was a spike? And that was one of my original questions, is what would it take gas prices to shoot up to where GEO gets back to looking as favorable as it did 5, 6, 7 years ago when we were doing all GEO schools. And so we started out with today's dollars, which we're using $5.50 per MCF of natural gas. And we increased it to $8 on day one and said, where does that take us? And with the $5.50 number, which is what you all have, it takes about 31 years for the two trend lines to cross, meaning that's when the operation of a hybrid system starts becoming cheaper to run your building than the boiler chiller. So it's way out there, okay? Now, if you increase your natural gas on day one to $8, now that intersection occurs at 23 years. So it shaves it off significantly. And I would imagine if you carry that up to $10 per MCF, which, again, we were seeing, 5 years ago, you're probably down to that 14, 15-year range, which is back when everyone was saying, yeah, GEO is a good bet at that price range. So I can, it definitely correlates to what we were seeing, just some years ago. Another thing that was asked at that last meeting is, can we get some information on the drilling climate? Because there's been questions about, Allie, you raised a comment about the cost for geothermal being can be all over the map. And certainly Gilbane's done some geo projects, can probably speak to some of their experiences as of recent. Last week I did call a driller. At present, there are 2 commercial geo drillers in the state of Ohio. There's only 2. They've been very good quality drillers and have stayed in business in this climate of low natural gas prices, which have run a lot of the drillers around the country out of business altogether. And he said that, speaking of Jackson Geothermal, their operation is now 50% of what it was 3 years ago. They have downsized. They're down from 12 rigs down to 6. And that's just, drilling is dried up by and large because of the rates. Now, he said if a year and a half ago your building was going to bid and you had 180 wells or 400 wells, you would be paying, he said, 1980s pricing to have your drills drilled, or your bores drilled, because there was so much competition that everyone was driving the price down artificially low, to the point actually of negative effect where a lot of building owners were actually having the drillers walk off the job because they couldn't do it for the price they quoted. And that's actually tragic for a lot of owners. I guess there's still jobs that are sitting vacant because they can't get anyone to come out and finish the job because they don't have enough money to pay someone to do it right. And depending on where you're drilling, it can be more or less expensive to drill those bores because of the ground, the drilling logs and the earth conditions. If there's a lot of groundwater, sometimes that can definitely affect, how much effort it takes to drill down 400 feet. So when I looked at the budget, it came out to about $6,000 per borehole is what they had in the estimate. And Karpinski's been using $5,000 per bore for a number of years as an estimate. And according to Jackson, that's still a good number to use. Somewhere between 5 and 6, I think, is still, 6 may be a little conservative, but it's not way overinflated. And I think market corrections in the drilling world have brought prices back up a little bit, but they're not, you're in a competitive market, you're just not going to get 6 bidders come to the table. You'll probably get 2. You'll get, and Jackson said, we would only bid the job if at that time we have an opening in our schedule to do it, because they don't have as much capacity to drill. So I guess the takeaway from that is not to be down on geo, it's just there's just less players in the field, and it doesn't necessarily make prices go up. It just means there's limited capacity to do it because it's not, everyone's shrunk their businesses to right size for the market conditions. So will gas go up in price? I'm not an energy expert. I do know that it seems that a lot of coal plants are switching to natural gas. That's going to take natural gas out of the market. What do I think that's going to do to electric prices? I got to think it's going to make them go up. If coal is cheap, but we just decide not to use it due to regulations from the government, I would imagine it would. You switch over to natural gas, you'll drive natural gas prices up. Utilities are going to pass those costs to make that switch, which is a big price tag. They're going to pass that on to the consumer, and I would expect electric rates to go up along with gas. So no surprise there. Nothing goes down. Everything goes up over time. And that's what our predictions show anyway, but the rates at which those go up, all we can use is published data unless someone can show us some credible resources to plug in. So one of the questions that Ally brought up, and also Eric, number 2, we did a little bit of a kind of a sensitivity analysis, and I'll pass this over, and you can even keep it. But what we did is we took in all these escalation rates for electric and for natural gas, and the big number in bold here is actually where we are now based on the escalation rates that are published. And then we just ran, 100 different scenarios here of different combinations of escalation rates. And you can see that, it can go for the best case for hybrid, where over 35 years we're saving $3 million with a high, interest rate increase. And then over on the opposite end, you can show the boiler chiller looking looking really, looking really great, over 35 years. So I'll send this over so you can understand. And then the other piece is, in questioning the overall cost of this is, can we trust the estimates on the capital equipment? Because those are the big pieces. And from the estimate, the hybrid system, which is 185 boreholes, is what we've estimated. And coming back to what Gary was saying, if we did go forward with an alternate for a hybrid or a full GO or however you want to proceed, we would be able to design the load calculations, the heating and load calculations for the entire building, which would be developed to a greater level of detail, and we would be able to nail down exactly how many boreholes we're dealing with and how big of a system we're dealing with. Right now, we have to go with past projects, square footage, what information we have now. We've been doing this a while. We think we're pretty close, but it's not exact. It's an estimate. That's the reality. When you're at an SD level, you're putting forward an estimate, plugging information into a sophisticated energy model with estimated numbers, so you're going to get an estimated output. And until we run that all the way through, which really will take a couple more months to where the building is developed and then run our calculations, which is pretty lengthy, then we'd be able to narrow it down. But until then, we're looking at, conservative estimate dollars for the capital equipment. And, like the geothermal right now with the hybrid, it's $1.1 million just for the boreholes and all the piping that's associated with it into the building. And then, you've got some other, large expenses for, modular heat pump chillers and then, cooling towers and condensing boilers. So, I guess, is there any questions on anything so far?
I had a couple, probably sort of stupid questions. In terms of either the hybrid or the full geothermal, in terms of the way they bid a project, do they give you a bid and then contingencies, or is it, we started drilling and, 3 miles north of here was a quarry. I mean, so I don't know what's underground. There is, once they start hitting things, they say, sorry, I'm going to triple the price.
No, they can't do that. In fact, that's one of the nice things. If you can get one of the Ohio drillers, they've drilled all over the state and they know what they're into. And they do that test bore, and that test bore is generally indicative of everything that's on your site. The earth isn't going to look radically different, 46 feet over from the hole they dug. So, no, when they do that test bore, they analyze the log, they know they know the top 40 feet is shale, then they're going to hit, bedrock, or they're going to hit something, and then they're going to hit groundwater, and, they look at that and then they adjust their price, because they know.
The test is all the way down.
The test is all the way down, 400, in this case, we were estimating 400 feet for our design. So they would drill all the way down, and they know exactly what they're drilling, and they know how long it takes them to drill those holes.
So 2 other questions, and then I'll, so one is, just because I like making things more complicated than they already are, if, for instance, the hybrid became the base, and I'm just saying if, so that it doesn't get those little legs you're worried about, is the spacing between holes set by the number of holes, or does that allow you then to, at some either future point, or if you see savings in the project, say, I've drilled, whatever you said, 180 holes, I can drill all 400. So in other words, is it not lost work? So therefore making the alternate be the full geothermal.
The spacing of the holes is generally dictated by how much heat transfer you're going to put into the earth. I don't want to get too technical. It's just 20 feet on center is a standard, best bang for your buck spacing, takes advantage of your site, and also gets a good amount of heat transfer. So if you drilled half the holes, and then your question is, if we came up with more money later to drill the other half,
right,
and then what would that do to the inside? I guess what would happen then is the boilers that you had purchased, you could take those out of service and use more geothermal loop. And same for the cooling tower, you could also take that out of service and use the ground loop. So
It's not
it's
really a fair
feasible,
question for you to
but-
have to answer off the top of your head, but I'm more wondering if it allows you the ability to not waste work and at the same time have a little bit more flexibility into the future, if that's in fact where the budget leads us or any number of other decision-making factors leads us. And then the final question I have for you is, you're drilling down 400 feet. You're putting pipes in the ground. From what I understand, the pipes are sealed and concrete's put around them, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Do these companies provide guarantees of any kind? I know every single one of them says, oh, nothing's going to happen. Ground shifts, pipe breaks, that is a major issue to get that out of the ground. So what do these companies do to make you say, I mean, I understand all the benefits of geothermal, but I can see where, golly, I hope that never happens, because everything above it's going to be a problem. And so anyway, can you speak to that at all?
Generally, they warrant the installation for like 50 years, I believe, and
that includes all the costs of demolition and taking it out and moving the building over 5 feet so that you can get to that spot. And I'm just
well,
kidding about that.
I think we have to be careful because someone has, it's been said a few different times that a geothermal system will last 50 years. Now, when you say a geothermal system, what lasts 50 years and maybe even 100 years is the ground loop, the boreholes, and the piping. The piping doesn't wear out. It's made out of, polypropylene. Or polyethylene, I'm sorry. And that's not going to wear out. It's not going to erode away at the water velocities going through the pipe. What will wear out is the equipment inside the building, the heat pumps, the all that stuff is going to wear out over time. So that does not have a 50-year service life. I guess if your site is located on a fault line, I'm not a geologist, but yeah, I guess if the earth is subject to shifting, I think you've got bigger problems than, if you have a major earthquake that splits the geothermal system is probably the least of your worries at that point.
No, if your polyethylene has a fault in it that they didn't find, I mean, it's probably a more.
Yeah, well, they're going to pressure test that pipe, to probably 150% of what its operating pressure is. It's all going to be done while they're installing it. If a pipe were to burst while they're installing it, then they're on the hook to drill a new hole right next to it and run a new pipe down, and that's not added cost to you. That's part of their
Would they
screw-up.
move 20 feet off center, or they would stay closer?
Well, if they drilled a hole and put the pipe in and the pipe failed, they would probably drill right next to it, and you'd have 18 feet on center for that one hole or something.
And I think more likely than not, if you have one go bad, it's going to be like a oil well. You cap it and move 5 feet over. I mean, that's what they're going to do. It's cheaper to do that than pull up 400 feet of pipe.
Got Red Adair over here.
I was thinking
What are you
Jethro
gonna do?
clamping.
Well, it's 400 feet, they're going to pull up, they'll hold next to
Yeah,
it.
once it's in the ground, you
Like
abandon it in
asbestos
place
in the car.
and start over.
Now, if we think about these systems, is there a mix?
Okay, I'm sorry. You asked your question first.
Well, is it, when we think about hybrid, is it 50-50, 20-80, 60-40? Can we make some combinations of it that's different?
Yeah.
What's the standard? Let me ask that.
Well, we're as a starting point, I think we're at 50% geo for the heating. So the heating load and the cooling load are not equal. So there's more, the number of holes for, let's say, full geo, you would need approximately 400 holes to cover all of your heating. But if you were sizing the system for just cooling, you might only need, say, 300. So we are sizing the field for approximately 50% of the heating load, which comes out to about 185 holes, okay? And then we're able to we're able to add a little bit of supplemental cooling with the fluid cooler, that would go on your roof as a way of bringing that down. So when we do the full calc, then we would optimize the number of holes based on the load, wherever it comes out. So right now, we have to kind of shoot from the hip and start with an estimate, and that's how we came up with that, saying let's cut it in half. So yeah, you're right. The best bang for your buck may end up 55, 45, or it may be 60, 40. There's going to be some range in there that we would have to look at. Okay.
Anything else?
So Gary, you gave me the first cost.
The first cost for the full geo, and then the life cycle cost. So
Oh, I see that here. Okay.
Yeah, the deltas there are between the
Okay, so the first cost on the full geo was 4.12 million, and the total life cycle was 23.6. And then the boiler chiller is 2.067 on the first cost, and a life cycle of 26.67. So there's a delta of $3 million over the 35 years. So that's basically replacing the cost of most of the cost of the system. And then going down to the hybrid, the delta there was, that's 612,000. That's between the boiler chiller and the hybrid. Is that what you're showing here? Okay.
that may be some of you did some adjustment.
Yeah, right. So it's a little bit more than that, but yeah, the biggest differential would be between the boiler chiller and the full geo, obviously. That's where you're going to see the biggest savings. So I guess as natural gas gets more expensive, it starts making the full geo look a lot better, as the bottom line. As long as electric rates do not rise as fast, if they rise a lot slower than natural gas, it's just going to continually make geo look like a better system over the long term. And another question that was brought up is, why didn't we run a 50-year life cycle? And we actually did, because you asked. And the magic with 35 years is that it shows the replacement of all the equipment in both systems. Whereas if we go out 50 years, we're replacing the geo equipment twice, but the boiler chiller equipment only once, because you get 35 years on a centrifugal chiller, whereas you would only get 25 on.
Your boiler goes first.
The boiler goes first, but the centrifugal chillers on a boiler chiller system, those last 35 years. So in 50 years, you will not replace that chiller twice. You'll replace it once, and you probably will be out 65, 70 years before you replace that chiller a second time.
Excuse me, Alan. Not now.
No, it's a fair question. All the equipment, the numbers are here. The boilers are going to go out at approximately 25 years. The cooling towers last 30, and the centrifugal chillers last 35. The heat pump chillers, I don't know if those will last 35 or not. It may be somewhere around 30. So, again, in 50 years, it doesn't tell the full story. You'd have to go out 70, but then you'd just be taking the 35 and carrying out the rates, and it'll just show a bigger spread over time. So I think the 35 years is sort of a sweet spot for kind of showing you the trend. But obviously, as time goes, and as long as we don't come up with some new crazy technology that saves a lot of energy, which I'm sure we will. These condensing boilers are a new animal in the last 10 years. And the efficiencies are significantly better than what we were using in the late 80s, early 90s. So I can only expect that human brain can keep making things better and better. But with today's technology, this is where we're at.
Anything else?
Just Steve and Gary, just one more reiteration, that if I would put the geothermal ahead of the extra swimming lanes and the high bay as a personal preference. If we're listing our priorities, let's do geothermal first, before 2 more swimming lanes.
Well, I guess that's when we really get to it, start trading off, really.
Yep.
Okay, Sophie. Well, on the flip side, though, is to
Wait
to
a minute.
Sophie's choice. To a degree, though, I think if we're gonna, it's gonna be if we get some traction on fundraising, fundraising for geothermal does not have a lot of appeal, because it's hard to put your name on something that's 400 feet underground. Additional lanes on a pool, high bay space, those are things that I think are much more conceivable.
Well, I think fundraising for geothermal is probably not on the table.
Well, no,
At all, not even close.
No, but my point being is that if you're gonna prioritize things that, okay, if you've got, if we're fortunate enough that we end up seeing a $500,000 or $750,000 come out of the enabling projects, that we have the ability to do it, geothermal is something that's, we get a bigger bang for the buck, whereas it's harder to go out and sell, a borehole for
We're
naming
stretching
rights.
on the fundraising, I think.
I know, I'm agreeing, but I'm just,
I just caution all of us to make judgments about fundraising. I would guess that the sustainability group would disagree with your statement, whether I agree or not.
I'd
that
like to
they
see
would
some
say people
examples.
would. That said, we can't be making decisions based on if-come money.
Exactly.
So that part of it, at this point, from me personally, is not part of my decision-making in any of it. I will say that the notion of having alternates I think is a good notion, and whether it's the alternate of the hybrid system or the hybrid system's the base and the alternate of the full geothermal, I think that is a great way to go, because then you can play off things that you have the time to play off. But I will agree with you completely that I'm not going to make judgments on what you can and can't raise money on. I think we have not shown ourselves to be outstanding fundraisers. Let's be honest.
it's also 10 o'clock at night, so
No.
It's 10?
After 10, after 10 o'clock, it's much more,
I
devil may care.
have just a question. If I understood and I forget who raised the question about additional wasted work and additional
That was me.
boreholes. The question was, is it wasted work if you put in a well field that is for 50% of the heating load, and at some point, we're assuming that these wells are probably going to be located somewhere in the vicinity of the existing ball fields, because they're going to be torn up anyway during construction, so we're going to do that. So my question to Evan is it possible to design, let's say, the manifolds for those, for the well field, so that you could potentially, if you got the money, put in additional wells?
That was the question I meant to ask.
Okay.
That's exactly that question.
That was what I was thinking.
That's what I thought you meant.
To put in the infrastructure to go back and add another 50% of the holes later, I mean, I haven't thought it all the way through, but I don't see why you couldn't.
Just said absolutely we could, and there was no problem. That's what I just want to make sure I heard you.
Everything's possible with the right amount of money.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah, I
Develop lyrics too, huh?
I just did.
Yeah.
Ran away. No, yeah, but that honestly was, thank you, Gary, for articulating much better than I did. So, yeah.
No, I definitely think you could.
Anything else?
I guess the only thing that I'd like to say, and unfortunately Laura's not here anymore, that I can say without any hesitation that never was it in my mind that we promised this community full geothermal in the Issue 81 campaign. However, I think we absolutely promised at a minimum of LEED Silver and much more energy efficient buildings. And I would love for us to get to full geothermal. And I think probably any of us would love that. Maybe not, but we'll do our best to try to figure out a way to get there or get to the hybrid, or any of our choices will be just significantly more efficient than what we have at this point. But I'm not at this moment ready to settle on the high efficiency base system.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you all.
thanks very much. Okay, that moves us to G. I believe 1 and 2 can be taken together.
So
I'll accept the motion.
Second. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Any questions, discussions?
why is everyone leaving?
That was the show?
We're still,
You've never seen it before?
we're never right. All the TV shows already started.
Thanks, guys.
We're just running credits now.
Oh, I guess so. Jeez. Might be like a little teaser at the end of the show.
Really?
You know, for the next sequel.
Scott,
Finding
is
some
there-
Call the roll, man. What the
There's-
hell?
No,
Is there
I mean, we
anything
have our
you-
monthly reports and we're just closing out some, we're still doing some cleanup for in the accounts, so.
The canoe
Nothing
committee?
major.
Club.
What was the canoe committee?
Oh, that's the thing, a lot of these things, you know, when we went back, I don't know when they came to be, how long they've been defunct, but what my staff tried to do was make sure that they were transferring money from these old accounts to something that had a similar purpose.
You don't remember the canoe
I think
fund?
it was in the yearbook with the Jimmy Buffett fan club kind of stuff, yeah.
But political awareness is
I
huge.
think it was during your time.
My time. How?
But
My time. Gee, thank you. I didn't realize that was that all.
I was just surprised about
Anything
the
else?
fox hunting club. That was a surprise.
Call the roll, man.
Damn.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Coble?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
There is no board president's report.
Thank goodness.
Unfinished business? New business? No board committee reports, right?
I'm gonna give one. I gotta give one because I promised last time.
Okay.
I'll make it quick. It's for Reaching Heights. Remember I said Reaching Heights had a board retreat. Actually, Susie Kaiser came and talked about the founding and the beginnings of Reaching Heights. The people who were there felt that they recentered themselves, and they actually have created a program called Adopt a School, where every board member adopts one school, and then they make the relationships with that school, because the function of Reaching Heights is to connect the community to the school. So that was really sort of cool, I thought, and I think it's a great idea. The other thing is to remind everybody that this is another Reaching Musical Heights year, and this Reaching Musical Heights will happen Tuesday, February 27th. Did I say 4th or 7th? Oh golly.
29th.
Whichever one's a Tuesday, the 24th or the 27th, I apologize, I can't read my own writing. At 7:30 p.m., it's a 90-minute show. Just announced, you will be the first ones to know, Jeffrey Golden, who had won the Sunday Best, as you might know, is the honorary chair, and he will be singing with the gospel choir at that this year. So,
What did you say?
Jeffrey Golden,
No, on the date.
24th or 27th. You figuring out the date for me? Which one's a Tuesday?
24th.
Okay.
24th it
man.
is. So it's
That's-
February 24th, 7:30
because
p.m.,
the-
90-minute.
Is that at Sevens or where? Not this year.
Instrumental Music Department tour starts the 28th, I think, and I was thinking,
So
oh my gosh,
20
are they leaving the
24th.
next day?
So, more to come. That's all I have.
Yeah, the 28th would be a Thursday or Friday.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Are we, any other?
Did you have something?
I have, well, for the two remaining civilians in the audience, if they don't leave, then the Alumni Foundation's cocktail party is on the 13th of this month. I'm sure Mr. Gaynor's office or Mr. Zucker would be more than happy to sell anyone in the audience who are still here tickets. The alumni, Heightsgear.com is having a sale 2 days later on November 15th. So get your Heights gear there just in time for all of the holidays. Beat the Thanksgiving rush. And the Facilities Accountability Committee, they had their last meeting. One of we talked about a little bit at the meeting with Cleveland Heights City Council. One of the issues that took a lot of time was discussions regarding the pool, community pool versus community usage. And one of the key components would be a staffing model and beginning a dialogue with all three municipalities about participating. And I believe we're hopefully seeing a little bit of movement on the fundraising efforts as far as just getting some traction. So those are the two, I think my two committees. So now our civilians can leave. So those are my two committee reports.
Okay, thank you. Any announcements or correspondences? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Koval?
Yes.
Ms. Pepper?
No.
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Great.
We're adjourned.